The upcoming election. This has been the most insane election cycle ever, and that's including the last one. Hell, the last two. And ever since Trump's been in it.
Somehow, it keeps getting even more insane.
We are the most divided we've ever been, and it's 50-50 down the middle. It's so close in every single poll.
Which blows my mind.
I know it.
Warning, may contain Libtards, the MAGA Cult, corruption, expensive groceries, 666 Fifth Avenue, and/or peanuts.
And pull that mic right up in your face. That way you can hear the beautiful voice. You can move that mic around, lean back, enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I have no idea how it's this close.
And I know what's, your political leanings, and, we want to talk very freely, but I hear a lot of people say that. They're like, how can you possibly even consider voting for the other side? And the crazy part and the thing I love about my life is I have friends that are on the far end of each spectrum, and I love and respect both of them. And I get their perspectives. They just have these really differing core values that are just driving them, because one thing's really, really fucking important on one side, and they don't give a shit about all of the other craziness that's happening. And then the other side's, the opposite. They have different values. They think other things are way more important, and so they see all the other craziness that's happened on the other side, and they're just like, they're bonkers. Yeah. Like, how do we actually support that? So today, I want to talk a little bit about, some of the at least talking points that you hear on both the left and the right. Maybe debunk some bullshit that people keep throwing around.
Yes.
That's what you're good at.
That's what I like doing.
Like,
let's get down to it.
So first off, give a little bit about where you're from, because I think where you're from is a big indicator of your political leanings. But then you're surprised because some people like yourself, born and raised in Texas, you typically don't find someone that's left leaning in that situation.
Yeah, so I'm from H-Town, baby.
H-Town,
deep in the jungle in Houston,
that third coast.
So I grew up in a very conservative, not very conservative household, right? Nothing, not like Bible thumping, nothing too crazy, but we're conservative, right? I grew up watching Bill O'Reilly with my old man at night, but also in Houston, very diverse place, right? So I was surrounded by all of it. I was pretty darn conservative until MAGA. I always voted conservative, thought I was conservative. By the time I got to college, but in college, I considered myself a little bit more libertarian, less so conservative. And I thought libertarians had it all figured out. Government, stay out of my way, and then kind of got educated on that. I'm like, oh, that's kind of bullshit. Like, that doesn't make much sense. And then MAGA kind of changed it all for me, man. I just kind of went the exact opposite way, which is funny because I know a lot of folks who are the opposite. They were always kind of raised more on the left side. And then when Trump came along, all of a sudden they were like, yeah, this guy, I get it. Yeah. And they changed, which is again, wild.
And we're doing no video today, so we can speak a little bit more freely, but you should have seen his face just now. Cause it's like when people tell you you're voting MAGA, it's like, wait, what? And I honestly can't say how I'm going to be voting in this cycle. I think local versus presidential is probably going to be different. Like, I used to just vote down party lines, and I've stopped doing that over the last few cycles. I've been trying to pick and choose on the local level. Like, all right, this guy actually wants this. I'll vote by policy, because right and left, it's not always black and white. On this one, it's just so insane because you can't have a conversation with most people because they've already made up their minds. So there's just no point in even discussing anything.
That's the hard part. You literally can't have a conversation with folks. They'll just, interrupt over and over. Well, what about this? Well, what about that? And you can't get anywhere with most people.
So just to cut to the chase, Matt's going to be trying to convince everyone to vote for Kamala today. And I'm going to try to push back on it, because I do have a lot of intelligent friends who they have serious concerns about they would say to Matt, what the fuck are you thinking, even considering voting for that, fill in the blank derogative is normally what we get from the right these days. But and there may be some truth to it. And if there is, then we should all know about it. We shouldn't just write it off. And we need to do the same for, both sides. I think the whole whataboutism, they're doing it worse. that's not a very productive way to look at things. But we're still going to do some of that today too.
Yes.
We're like, hey, you got to check for some, some shady shit over here. Did the other side? Who got the bigger check?
Yeah.
And what was it actually for?
Yeah. And I should preface it that, you said I'm going to try to convince everyone to vote Harris. I'm not a Harris fanboy. I think we can be doing way, way better. I don't know that much about her, but I've yet to hear an argument on why she would be bad for us. She does have a good record. I don't know. I haven't heard anything really negative about her that seems to be true. And so I think it's just, an infinitely better option than voting for Trump at this moment.
So you're not voting for Kamala, you're voting against Trump.
Yeah, but having Walz as her VP.
Is it Walz or Waltz?
Waltz.
Do you know, Rachel?
I don't know.
I don't know. Is there a hard T in there?
I'm not sure, but Walz, I like him. I can
it's
vote
spelled
for him.
Walz.
I would
There's
vote for him.
There's no actual T in there. I'm just not sure if you pronounce it Waltz or just Walz.
But I feel good voting for him. I like him. I wish he was running for president. I'd vote for him in a heartbeat. I feel really good about it. He's the real deal. That guy has dedicated his life to serving people around him. And that's true. That's what we need is true leadership. And that's what he has. Harris.
Because what's his background? He was a high school teacher for most of his career.
High school geography teacher. What's up, baby?
No wonder you like him.
Oh, yeah. I see him talking about using GIS and maps to solve problems. Oh, that's good. But how long did he serve in the Guard for? That guy served his country, not Captain Bone Spurs that you have Trump.
Well, not to circle around too much. Let's just start here because this is one thing that I hear a lot from both sides. Is one loves Walz. The other one, they bring up, here's the issues that I heard brought up, that he faked some service. Like he claimed that he was active military when he wasn't, that he doesn't deserve the rank that he has. What are the other detractors that I keep hearing about Walz?
He bought some date of...
Oh, yeah. He was in Tiananmen Square during the whole debacle, but I guess his dates were off by... How old was he during that Tiananmen Square China visit anyways? We're looking this up right now. So talk to me because you were telling me a little bit about, more about the military than I do. You yourself have been a part of the military to a certain degree. I don't know any of the rankings. Apparently he's got is it the top rank that you can have in the National Guard, or is it just a high one?
As an enlisted officer. So
which enlisted meaning you don't have, you're not a
he doesn't come in as an officer. Yeah, you have enlisted, and then you have
come in as a little grunt versus preppy boy.
And so he came out as Chief Master Sergeant, I think. I'm trying to look that up, and he got pinned at that rank due to his outstanding service, and they needed him to step up into that rank right before he got out. And so, however, he didn't officially have all the required training, but it's very common for that to happen. Happened to me while I was in the Guard.
So if your higher ups consider you to be exceptional, they can bring you on up early, I guess is what it is.
So, hey, we need someone to fill this role. The best person for it is, this guy. They gave him the promotion without having the actual final, training. So when he left the Guard, he was at that rank, but he officially shouldn't claim to be retiring as that rank. And it's just semantics.
Okay.
But then you have people on the right.
It's an honest misspeaking of a,
Yeah, but he earned that rank.
Yeah.
Real talk, he earned that rank. Right? He served his country.
How many years was he in the Guard?
25 years.
So
he served his country. He sacrificed 25 years of his life. When you're in the National Guard, you're a lot of them, they're working another full-time job.
Well, so according to this one right here, it's the 24 years of National Guard service. He specialized in heavy artillery and retired as the highest ranking enlisted National Guard soldier in southern Minnesota. Yep. So specifically for southern Minnesota, he was the highest ranking.
Yeah.
He went to college on the GI Bill. So
you don't get that rank by being a piece of shit, right? You don't get that rank unless you are absolutely committed to serving your country. And he did it. He got it. And then you have people on the right who were like, oh man, he lied about his rank. I'm like, no, he didn't. Okay, it's semantics and verbiage. He didn't lie. He's not dishonest about it. He earned that rank. He didn't have whatever, as you're going up to the military, there's like required training, like all these different like military professional career development that you had to do along each step of the way. He wasn't planning on going for that, so he was about to get out. So he didn't have that. But they said, hey, we need someone, you're the best option. And they gave him that rank. It happens all the time. He's a great guy. I mean, how the conservatives are shitting on him is crazy. I mean, the guy, he hunts. He's a good old boy. What's not to like about the guy?
One thing that I was pleasantly surprised about, I did not watch the whole thing, full disclosure, but the vice presidential debates between him and Vance. Mm-hmm. First off, it was way more amicable than the presidential one, which, kudos to both of the vice presidents for actually acting presidential. Surprise, surprise. But the one thing that caught my attention most, and maybe like 5-10 minutes I watched it, the ladies running the whole show, they went on to the next question while Walz was trying to say something. Walz apologizes to him for interrupting. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. And I'm like, that never ever would have happened in the presidential debate. No. Like, come on. Don't we want a guy that actually is like, you know what? I'm confident in my ability to speak the truth, and I got nothing. I'm not going to just talk over people. That's the type of person we want to support.
And that speaks volumes to why.
But Vance also is much better as well. I mean, to give credit where credit's due, Vance was also very respectful compared to his presidential.
He is such a polished turd. Yes. I think, Walz, he is the definition of the kind of person you want in a leadership role that, like, most people who will take that job don't deserve it. And most people who we need for that job don't want it. Yeah. He is that guy, right? I wish he was running for president, to be honest with you. I didn't know shit about him.
Oh, so you're a Kamala hater now. What the hell?
I don't know. I don't love her. I don't really like her all that much, but it's clear that she is, an honest, decent person compared to the alternative for sure. And she has leadership capabilities that's been proven over the years. And so it's like, she's what we got. Absolutely. Let's go for it.
So you had the other thing about Walz in Tiananmen Square. What was that? Like the confusion there?
And so are we recording this screen for viewers to watch this?
So
I like that.
We'll just have the logo in the back so people can see the awesome logo that my girl Emily hooked up for us, and then we'll show what we're watching on the screen here.
I like that idea.
People watching get a little bit of eye candy.
See what we're looking at here. I love it.
So Minnesota Public Radio said the evidence shows that Walz, then a 25-year-old teacher, was still in Nebraska in May 1989. He went to China that year through World Teach, a small nonprofit based at Harvard University. So, I mean, I guess he got his dates mixed up and people were claiming that he was lying about being there, but he went soon after, not before. Is that what's happening?
I'm not even sure on this one, to be honest. I haven't
you're not familiar with this one?
I'm not familiar with this one, but it's like, that's what y'all got. That's what y'all are trying to like pin this guy down as not being worthy of leadership.
Yeah, I don't want to do the whataboutism yet, but good God. Okay. I don't know anything about Vance though, right? The only thing I've heard is that he's what is that, Project 2025?
Yeah.
In the debate with Trump and Kamala, Trump very clearly said that he is not going to be following Project 2025. So why is everyone on the left consistently over and over repeating that that's definitely what he's going to do? And maybe we should go over real quick what Project 2025 is and a little bit. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, why does everyone on the left think that? It's because everyone who is a part of Project 2025 are people that were in his last cabinet he's still supporting, and he's saying that he's going to put them in his cabinet. And it's like, oh, I don't support what these guys are doing, but I'm going to put them in my cabinet. It doesn't take a genius to connect those dots. Like, he's clearly aware of it. He tried to say he doesn't know anything about it. He clearly does. It's the people he's surrounded by.
So do you know enough about Project 2025 to give us a kind of brief synopsis?
No, we should pull it up.
Let's pull this up
a
right here.
very brief synopsis is they basically want to get in and gut the federal government and replace it with their own, I don't want to say caliphate, but, their own, MAGA.
Very like Christian oriented, right?
Yeah. And they want to
Which isn't always a bad thing.
Gut the federal government.
If everyone were Christian. But let's see here. Project 2025 is a historic movement brought together by over 100 respected organizations from across the conservative movement to take down the deep state and return the government to the people. Its mandate for leadership, the Conservative Promise, published in April 2023, is a product of more than 400 scholars and policy experts from around the world, or country, sorry. The book offers a menu of policy suggestions to meet our country's deepest challenges and put America back on track, including secure the border, finish building the wall, and deport illegal aliens, de-weaponize the federal government by increasing accountability and oversight of the FBI and DOJ, unleash American energy production to reduce energy prices, cut the growth of government spending to reduce inflation, make federal bureaucrats more accountable to the democratically elected president and Congress, improve education by moving control and funding of education from DC bureaucrats directly to parents and state and local governments, and ban biological males from competing in women's sports. It's interesting that they put that on the
important stuff. Yeah.
And then they have more about. So this is, lock and step with, the very conservative side. All of those kind of are shrouded in like there's more to it. Let me see here. One thing that I know the far right is a big fan of is homeschooling, which on the surface level, you're like, yeah, fine, homeschool your kid. But then you hear horror stories about some of these kids being,
homeschooling in private schools, like in Texas, the vouchers, which we should talk about that later as well. I'm gonna get too off topic, but that's a really good one to discuss. But it's hard to overstate how bad this is for our country, because it's the people who are writing this have a fundamental, complete non-understanding, not even a misunderstanding, non-understanding of how our federal government works. What they call the deep state is designed on purpose and has worked and gotten us to where we are. No matter who's running Congress, no matter who's in the office, Oval Office, even no matter who's in the Supreme Court, you need people who have that legacy knowledge working in the federal government to keep it running. And if you try to replace everyone every election cycle, it will just crumble.
Well, is this talking about replacing it, or is it about holding them accountable? And so one example that we have is that we get legislators,
legislatures.
People who are in the legislature, they're asking whether it's the FBI, DOJ, CIA, whatever, for information, and they're not getting that information. So we have elected officials, whether it be in Congress or the president, and they're asking, hey, what is this about? Let's just throw out, aliens. Tell me all this information. Sorry, that's classified. But these are the people that we're choosing to run our country, yet we're not trusting them with that information. So when people say the deep state, I think there's a conspiratorial way to look at it. And I think that muddies the water. But I mean, we truly do have a deep state that's just very clearly, there's people there that aren't elected. They've been there for 30 plus years.
Yep.
They have a lot of power and control, which we all know what power does. And there's no way to actually hold them accountable at the moment.
Oh, no, there is the government, the federal government is full of accountability. Yes, there are plenty of examples where that's not necessarily the case, but there absolutely is accountability. It's not just, oh, we can't vote them out, so there's no accountability. No, it is Game of Thrones in the federal government in from the, executive branch on down, even within legislature and their staffing, right? It's full of accountability outside of even party politics too, right? But, you're talking about the, holding them accountable. What Project 2025 wants to be able to do is just basically, if you're not on board with their way, they want to be able to just fire you with no cause other than your beliefs.
Kind of like when Trump came in, he got rid of the head of the FBI because they were not seeing eye to eye, but they, there was a fight. And eventually, Trump won out, right?
Yeah.
What was that guy's name? That was the head of the FBI at the time. I'm trying to remember.
I forget.
But they definitely had a James Comey. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, he's the one that botched the whole Hillary investigation and all that before the last election. And but yeah, no, it's if there are a lot of positions in the federal government that are designed for each, when the new president comes in, he gets his own cabinet in positions, right? There's tons and tons of staffing positions that have to get filled. Like Trump could never even fill his. No one wanted to work for him. He couldn't find qualified folks, right? But outside of the cabinet, you have all these federal positions that are people there with legacy knowledge that is needed to run the government. Not to say that they're, irreplaceable. There's a very defined process in the federal government where people work up, the ranks, and you're supposed to be moving around, right? You're not supposed to stay in one spot forever. There's absolutely that accountability. Like there are like rules that like, hey, you shouldn't be in, this kind of position at G15 slot for, more than 6 years. You got to move over laterally. All right. And once you go to the top, you have to move, but it's got to be lateral. Right. So it's there, but you saw it in Biden's administration, right? There were quite a few folks, like the head of the post office. Like, why did he keep that guy in? He's trying to keep the integrity of the federal government and not just go in there and just wreck shop and get rid of all the shitty people that Trump put in that were doing bad. He tried his best. And that's what every president does, even the shitty ones, And these MAGA folks think they can just come in and fire anyone who doesn't want to do exactly what they say. And that's how you crumble a government, like overnight. Like I said, it's hard to overstate how bad this is for our government. It completely lacks any knowledge of how our federal government runs. You have a bunch of, one thing that we did, like Trump proved that he was absolutely incapable of finding quality folks to fill his cabinet and to run the government. Everyone who served under him are either in jail or suing him for one reason or the other. That is crazy, except for the few folks who stayed with him, and they're the Project 2025 guys, right?
So let's see what you have
to have solid folks in there.
JD Vance says Project 2025 group is the most influential engine of ideas for Trump. So Trump saying that 2025 has nothing to do with him is going VP. Very against what, okay.
His own VP candidate.
Did Trump just royally fuck up bringing on Vance? Because it seems like the second he was brought on, they're like, oh no, what did we do?
Well, he brought him on thinking they were going against old Sleepy Joe. And then when Harris stepped in, they realized, oh shit. Because Vance, let's be real. The only reason Vance is in there is because he agreed to do what Pence wouldn't do for Trump. And that's to contest an election, right? That was the only qualifier for that dude. He's got zero capabilities for any of this. Like he's like some greasy
what is his background?
He's like a greasy investment guy, right? Like,
hey, go back to that, Rach. I want to read a few of those 2025 points. So let's roll down a little bit. I was looking at one about, because abortion's one that we talk on the show a little bit. It's such a hot button topic because there is no middle ground, or it's not much middle ground, right? It's either you believe it's murder when they have a heartbeat or not, right? And I get it. If you have, religious background and your God tells you to do that, then you should probably fucking do that, right? Or else, you're going to go to hell or whatnot. But
God didn't say that. Bible didn't say it. It's their pastors and priests telling them that.
Yeah,
the Bible said, the Bible mentions abortion like what, once, and it's how to do it. So
wait, what? Is that true?
Yeah.
I'm a terrible. So 2025. She's going at it.
Yeah, the Bible I think mentions abortion like once, and it's like the recipe to do it.
So this would be the downside. This would be the upside of having the second screen, Rachel. Is if you're looking for something else while we're reading something. Yeah. So it says, is that true? So ancient Catholic abortions were known and practiced in biblical times. What? Although the methods differed significantly from modern ones. The 2nd century Greek physician Soranus, for example, recommended fasting, bloodletting, vigorous jumping, and carrying heavy loads as well. So everything a doctor tells you not to do, that's actually great advice. What the Bible says, the absence of an explicit reference to abortion, however, has not stopped its opponents or proponents from looking to the Bible for support. So there's no explicit reference other than, let me see here. blah, 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 something about their time in the womb, asserts that God knit me together in my mother's womb.
Oh, I like that. Exodus 21 suggests that a pregnant woman's life is more valuable than a fetus's.
Wait,
like that.
what? This text describes a scenario in which men who are fighting strike a pregnant woman and cause her to miscarry. A monetary fine is imposed if the woman suffers no other harm beyond the miscarriage. However, if the woman suffers additional harm, the perpetrator's punishment is to suffer reciprocal harm up to life for life. Interesting.
I like that because
this is Old Testament, though, and New Testament overwrites Old Testament.
Yes.
If there's anything in the New Testament, but I think it comes down to, the 10 Commandments say, don't take a life. When does life start? I mean, you consider literally, semen is still life. It's still moving, but it's when that semen gets with the egg, is it conception or let's see here. Bible only mentions abortion once. But anyways, a lot of people, regardless of what the Bible says, they feel that, once you're conceived, it's a life and you shouldn't take it.
But what's that Numbers 5:11 through 31? Is that a link or is it just an underline?
Okay, so then the Lord says to Moses, speak to the Israelites and say to them, if a man's wife goes astray and is unfaithful to him, so that another man has sexual relations with her, and this is hidden from her husband and her impurity is undetected, since there are no witnesses, and if feelings of jealousy come over her husband and he suspects his wife and she is impure, or if he is jealous and suspects her even though she is not impure, then he is to take his wife to the priest. He must also take an offering of 1/10 of an whatever that is, an ephah of barley flour on her behalf. This
priest is to write these curses on a scroll and wash them in bitter water. He shall make the woman drink the bitter water that brings a curse, and this water that brings a curse and causes bitter suffering will enter her hands.
Okay, so the only time you're supposed to abort a kid is if she cheats on you and you're jealous. Is that what I'm reading?
So they talk about the bitter water is, what is it, nightshade or something? The one that will make you basically induce an abortion. So
okay.
The priest will give her an abortion.
So they got Plan B back in the day?
So, yeah. So is this Old Testament or New Testament?
This is Old Testament.
Old Testament.
Yeah.
Loophole. Damn. They got us. They can keep doing it.
The New Testament and Mormons, they're the best because they have modern day prophets. And so their modern day prophets get to interpret all the scriptures, which is great because you should have new up to date stuff because you didn't have, Facebook back in the day. Yeah. Now the prophet can speak to Facebook.
Well, I like that Exodus one because it says, the woman is more important than the fetus. And I think that's what most rational people, in my mind, would think, right? Especially if it's, still doesn't have a heartbeat yet or brain waves and everything, right? And that's in my mind, it's yes, the woman's, alive right now. And, if she's having problems, how many, since Texas, shut down abortions, how many instances have there been with people dying because they can't get the correct health care, right?
Yeah.
I think it's something God damn, this is infuriating too. It's over 20,000 women have had forced pregnancies from rape in the state of Texas since they banned abortion. I think it's over 20,000.
Has that been?
It's been a few now.
That's a lot.
That one old piss baby Greg Abbott was going to completely eradicate Texas of rape, so this wouldn't even be an issue. That was his defense of it. What about rape? Oh, I'm going to get rid of rape.
Well, the problem is when you think a woman's going to go get an abortion and you're against it, you imagine, or at least this is how I used to, because, I'm a shitty person, but I'd imagine some irresponsible woman who's just fucking throwing her legs apart. And she's got
pregnant again.
You chose to, so you got to carry that baby, right? Mm-hmm. But if you take a step back and do what I think we all should do is picture yourself, picture your family and friends, picture someone who has a close relationship with God, because what I was taught and what I still believe is we need to have our own communion with God. We need to understand and have that conversation directly with him. And if you are having, whether it's a feeling or direction or whatever it is that you should not be carrying this child, that's between you, your doctor, your spouse, or close friends
Mhm.
and your God and no one else.
Not your neighbor and certainly not the fucking government.
And it's like everything else. Like we should not be banning things. We should be educating things on how to do it right and not to take advantage of the beautiful freedoms that we have.
Well,
Why are we taking away freedom from people?
Yeah, well, there's no such thing as banning abortion. There's only banning safe abortions. It's still going to happen. It's just going to get fucked up.
Well,
And if we look, I mean, look at that stat right there. The rate of maternal mortality cases in Texas rose by over 56%.
What? From 2019 to 2022, it rose by 56%. Wow.
That to me is not pro-life. I mean, it's not. I'm sorry, but fuck that. That's insane. It's so twisted backwards. I mean, the government should not be forcing pregnancies. I mean, I don't know why people are okay with that.
So 12.9% increase in infant deaths in Texas versus 1.8% in infant deaths in the rest of the U.S.
Look
Wow.
up how many
Texas, what are we doing?
forced pregnancies from rape in Texas. I think we're at over 20,000 now in Texas.
About 18 million women have experienced vaginal rape. Oh, no, that's not Texas. I'm like, holy mother of...
Researchers
so
claim
Texas leads in the country. Oh, God.
According to their study,
26,000
26,000 rape-related pregnancies occurred in Texas during the 16 months after the state legislature banned abortion.
So that's just since 2019. The figure comprises nearly 45% of all such pregnancies. Wow.
That's insane. And these people think they have the moral high ground.
Including Texas, an estimated 500,000 vaginal rapes of women aged 15 to 45 occurred in banned states. And almost half of them were in Texas. So an estimated 64,000 pregnancies occurred as a result.
So imagine you're a woman or a young girl, young teenager that gets fucking raped. And the government is telling them, hey, if you don't have that pregnancy, you're going to go to fucking jail. If we catch you having an abortion, you're going to go to fucking jail. And they've been sending people to jail. They sent a woman to fucking jail for aborting a stillbirth. They sent her to fucking jail in Texas. That is insane, Jace.
And what a fucking slippery slope.
That is insane.
All of a sudden you're going to have the McCarthy era because you have the legitimate, like my mom, my sisters, I know so many people that have had like legitimate miscarriages that they were distraught over that. They wanted that baby more than anything, and they're dying inside. And then have the slim possibility that you can go to jail because you have a miscarriage? Is that really what the current law is right now?
Absolutely. And you're not far off from the McCarthyism, bro. They have piss baby Greg Abbott has a goddamn bounty out for anyone if you report a doctor for performing abortions in the state of Texas, you get a fucking bounty, dude. That is McCarthyism. They fucking locked a woman up
reward
for
of
having
at least
a stillbirth.
$10,000 will be given to anyone who successfully sues the doctor. So you have to actually sue the doctor yourself, but you could get a $10,000 reward. Wow,
that's a wild fucking time and place to be, dude.
And it's happened before this.
I don't know, but he's put it out
that's
there.
what the law says.
I don't know if it's
actually happened.
I don't know if it's been successful or not, but that's what he's fucking doing, dude.
Dude.
And then look up.
That is not the
Texas,
golden rule, guys.
No.
That is not New Testament level.
And then look up in Texas. I know there's at least one case of a woman being arrested and jailed for aborting a stillbirth. Like, holy fuck, the baby is dead, and they're still like that's some sick shit, dude. That is some sick shit.
I want everyone to be able to practice their, whether you call it religion or spiritual beliefs, I want everyone to be able to practice what they believe without backlash. But this is the opposite, man. This is
And then now they have,
so convicted in 2022 after she took the drug misoprostol while 19 weeks pregnant. She was treated at a Texas hospital where doctors later performed a cesarean section to deliver a stillborn child after they detected no fetal heart. So what is that? Was she doing that on purpose, and that's why she was, or was it that like she was just taking something she didn't realize?
The lawsuit in March.
Charges were dropped just days after the woman's arrest, but still,
she charged at the small hospital where she was treated, claimed the hospital staff violated patient privacy rights when they reported the abortion.
And she ended up paying a $1,200 fine under a settlement reached.
That's fucking wild,
because she had a stillborn birth.
And so I don't know if they actually came through with the laws or not, but they're also trying to, make laws where you can't go to another state to get health care. And that's where, when they say this shit should be, let's leave it. That's what JD Vance and Trump and all them right now are pushing. It should be at the state level. And Ted Cruz was trying to say that the people should vote at the state level. First of all, Texas isn't letting us fucking vote on this shit. They don't let us vote for shit, right? They make those decisions.
Wait, we didn't vote on this?
Mm-mm. Fuck no. No, they don't put the actual real topics on the ballot, dude. They don't let us they vote for that shit for us, dude. But that's why it shouldn't be up to the states. This is an interstate federal issue, because if we're in the United States and a state is telling you, no, you cannot have health care, and no, you can't go to another state or even another country to do it, we're going to lock your ass up. That is a federal topic because it's interstate. Mm-hmm. It should not be at the fucking state level. Now, they can have some particulars, on it, on how they want to do it, but you can't have fucking states locking people up when they're having, aborting a stillbirth and saying you can't go to the next state over to get your health care. That's some wild shit, dude. That's some sick shit.
All right. So what are we looking up here, Rachel? So this is why we can't have, abortion and weed. The reason Texans can't vote on So like Texas, Ohio is a GOP trifecta state with Republicans in full control of state government. So the legislature and the governor are all Republican. As a Texan, perhaps you're wondering why you haven't had a similar, let me see, blah, 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 blah.
So, so half of the states empower ordinary citizens to, they can vote on initiatives, right? And so the state of Texas knows if they were to put shit like weed or abortion on the ballot, they'd fucking lose. It happened in Kansas.
You think the majority of people in Texas would vote?
I think they'd shove
for abortion.
Yeah, for women's rights and for weed. Yeah. Oh hell yeah, dude. They control that shit, man. If they were worth the fuck, if they thought that they were all about freedom and not over having power and control over the people, they'd put this shit on the ballot, and they don't. And that tells you everything you need to know. Certainly about conservatives in Texas. We have like the fucking worst of them, dude. Piss Baby Abbott, Ted Cruz, what's our attorney?
Ken Paxton?
Fucking Paxton, and then Dan Patrick. That's like the worst. Those are like four of the worst fucking guys. And how these guys continue to get in office.
Yeah, how do they? They're obviously getting voted for. Like, what's the...
Straight ballot fucking voters, dude. It's insane.
I think that's it.
Oh, that's all it. I mean, and no one likes him. No one likes Ted Cruz, dude. No one likes Ted Cruz. I saw something the other day that had like 30 different people across the government on both sides of the aisle, but mainly Republicans, and they're like, yeah, no one likes Ted Cruz. Like, everyone fucking avoids him. He's a piece of shit, right? The guy argued in front of the Supreme Court about how many dildos we can own in our own home. Like, how big of a piece of shit are you?
So this is saying another reason for liege in action, and that's talking about not having the propositions that we can specifically vote on. Yeah. It says, given the chance, Texans would almost certainly pass policies their GOP leaders oppose. Polling by the Texas Politics Project, and this is UT Austin, which is, all let's go hook 'em horns, shows far more registered voters approve than disapprove of expanding access to abortion, while supermajorities favor liberalizing weed laws, raising the minimum wage, and expanding Medicaid.
So what does that tell you about fucking modern conservatives, right? Like, conservatives like to...
They're doing it for our own good. Yeah, they're smarter than us, want a nanny state. We need to trust our overlords, man.
They want to have an authoritarian nanny state, and they wave their fucking flags and freedom, but no.
So is it just small, control. Really wealthy donors that keep them in power?
Mm-hmm. Yep. You have a couple things going on, right? In Texas in particular, they have the oil and gas industry that want conservatives because of reducing regulation and taxes, right? But then you also have the Bible thumpers that have big money in it, right? So it's like the oil and gas keeps them in office, and then the Bible thumpers help keep them in office as well, and they're the ones pushing all this shit, which has nothing to do with the populace.
There's some billionaire in West Texas that apparently is one of the richest guys, and he donates a shite ton to the ultra conservative. I don't know the guy's name. Let me see.
I know
someone was trying to tell me about him. Like, hey, this guy almost single-handedly keeps guys like Abbott in power.
Yep.
Interesting.
I know at the national level, there is a guy, I think Leo Leonard, who is basically responsible for putting in a ton of the more modern conservatives into the Supreme Court, and it's all like Catholic Church dark money. And it's
really?
they're basically trying to push a Christian nation, all Christian values.
Yeah, that worked out well for Iran.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a ton of dark money that comes in, and they set up all these like pseudo, like kind of like Heritage Foundation think tanks and shit that they push the money through, and it's all coming from church functions, billions of dollars, and they're the ones that put in certainly the last few Supreme Court justices, but they also like Leo Leonard is the guy that he set up another think tank with what's the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas's wife, to like help overthrow the election, the 2020 election and whatnot, and that's at the national level. He's not.
Wait,
Texas.
Clarence Thomas was involved in that?
His wife.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, his wife was absolutely part of the whole fake elector scheme, and like getting donors involved to push the whole fake elector scheme to overthrow the 2020 election.
So, Stillman approach real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any possibility that through Dominion and just bad actors at the state level, is there any possibility that Trump actually won the election?
I've seen no evidence of that. And no one has seen any evidence of that. They went to how many court cases did they go to? And they stood out front of the court cases and say, I'm going to go in there and show them the evidence of how the election was stolen. And they walked into the court in front of the judge. The judge was like, show me your evidence. Like, well, we don't actually have any evidence, but we think we should start a trial to get this moving. Like, well, without any evidence, we can't go to trial. Like, do you have evidence? No, we don't. And then they walked outside the court and told everyone they wouldn't look at our evidence. They had no evidence. There's no evidence. Show me the evidence. That's all it comes down to. Like almost every conversation we're going to have today is like, show me the money. Where is the evidence? If there's no evidence, end of discussion. Show me the evidence and we'll have that discussion. Whether it's the election, whether it's Biden being fucking corrupt, whether it's, why any certain regulation should be in place. We should be as a people, and the government should be making decisions based on evidence. If you don't have the evidence, shut the fuck up.
So that leads me to, I got a list. I reached out to all my conservative friends with like, hey, we're going to be talking about this. The guy I have on, he very clearly thinks that the Republican-led in Texas, definitely, and federally as well, they've just been leading astray. Someone who came from the Republican side now is disenfranchised due to their current actions leading up over the last decade is really when they kind of really got pretty radical. But some of the items they wanted to talk about, because they're like, this is one reason why I would never vote for whether it's Democrats in general or Harris. Top of the thing is ONG. We've got a good friend that we chat and we have a fun group where we give each other shit all the time. You got to have thick skin in it. But he's a single atom voter. It's ONG. He makes money. His family gets fed if we have ONG. Do you think that his family's going to be better off with Trump or with a Harris election?
Well, better off in which way?
Financially,
I would say financially,
is what he cares about.
Maybe financially, but it's still a toss-up because under Obama and under Biden, there was more oil and gas production record.
Is that true?
Yes.
Why does everyone say the opposite then?
Because right wing,
let's pull up
talk
something.
to me like, oh, they're going to kill oil. Remember when Biden was coming in, they're going to kill oil and gas.
Didn't he shut down a pipeline?
Yeah, but it was like that did not shut down oil and gas.
But that was so that was a pipeline from Canada,
he did
though.
it.
So that would have benefited Canada's
that was the
oil,
tar
and
oils to bring down, and everyone was blaming the gas prices on that. And the Keystone Pipeline had jack shit to do with gas. That was not going to be made into gas. It's the tar sands oil from up in like the northern Alaska. Not Alaska,
so it would have made a small amount of people a shit ton of money in the refining industry.
Yes.
And Canada.
Yes. And when it comes to their regulations on oil and gas, all it is just accountability. Like, look, if you can't make a profit without fucking killing Americans, you have no business in that being in that business.
Which
That's all
I think
it
we
is.
should all get behind.
Yes,
right?
right,
We
yeah.
do not want to poison water. Yeah, we want to use the resources we have,
Yes.
but not at the expense of fucking
Yes.
over our families
Exactly.
and neighbors,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. And so if you're not able to do it safely
Do you want
for
to bring that
human health,
what was that last chart, Rachel? Oh, is this just gas prices or what is this? Average annual gasoline price by president. Let's just make something very clear. I'm fairly confident about this. There's jack shit that the president does for gas prices, unless what Biden did because he had a shit ton of political pressure.
There's very little
he
they
pulled
can
out
do.
of reserve. So very superficially and very short term, yes, it lowered gas prices. But
Yeah.
I mean,
the idiots that were claiming, "Oh, I did that. Biden changed the fucking gas prices." And the goddamn global fucking energy crisis, and like, "Oh, Biden did it." Fucking idiots. It's no. You're absolutely right. There's very little.
Congress that does most of the things that are going to
not even just Congress.
Well,
There's
like
so
the
many
pipeline,
factors.
was that just Biden or was it
no.
Congress? That
He was the end.
he just signed
it.
he just didn't veto
wasn't
it,
his.
right?
No, it wasn't his. It's the EPA saying, "Hey, if you can't prove to us that you can do this safely, then come back and talk to us when you can do it safely." That's all it is. That's all. Most regulatory situations are like, "Hey, until you can do it responsibly." Sorry, you can't do it. But you made a good point, and there's two main topics on that. One is the president has very little to do with the price of gas, and two, the number one contributor to the health of an economy is the price of a barrel of oil. So when people start talking about who's best for the economy, it has very little to do with the president, and way more to do, almost always, with what's the current price of a barrel of oil.
Can the president unilaterally place tariffs, or is that also Congress?
I think they can. Yeah.
Because when Trump did that, did he just push that through as all Republican House and Senate, or did he unilaterally do that
through executive
Because
orders?
he keeps talking about that, right?
I think he can.
Having studied economics back at BYU, one of the things I learned is that a great way to be inefficient and take away a lot of the power of the economy is through tariffs. So while the U.S. Constitution grants to Congress the power to levy tariffs on goods, Congress has delegated some of that power to the executive branch over time. So over time, we've been giving the executive branch, the President of the United States, more and more power is what it feels like, right?
Yeah.
The US, what happened
so-
to the days when Jimmy Carter was having to sell peanut farms, man?
Dude.
Those were the good old days.
How far we've come. That's what most people don't understand about Trump's stupid ass tariffs. The right blames Biden for global inflation, inflation that's happening everywhere, not just the United States. And it was started long before Biden got in office, and they blame Biden for it. Right.
So,
a lot of our inflation, not all of it, COVID was a huge part of it. The global energy crisis,
the majority
huge
of it was
part of
COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. But his fucking tariffs is what sent it like downward spiraling into inflation.
It was terrible timing that he never
Yes.
could have known.
Yes.
I mean,
He couldn't have known,
to defend
yes.
him, there's no way we could have known that we
Correct.
would have gone into that. But he did happen to put in those major tariffs that
Yes.
did directly affected the industry I was in at the time and
Almost
increased
every
prices. Oh, I'm not talking like 10%. I'm talking like 30, 40%
Yes.
increase in cost to build schools, to
Yep.
build hospitals, solely due to the steel and what is it? Steel, aluminum, wood were like the big ones.
Yeah.
But then there were small
Canadian
ones
lumber and
elsewhere.
everything. Yeah. And people think that like he comes up with it. He just makes this shit up and he says, "Oh, I'm going to have China pay for this shit." China doesn't fucking pay it. It's the import companies in America that pay those fucking taxes.
Which ultimately means we
to
are
the
paying
American
for it
100%
through inflation.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. If
100%.
anyone thinks that China is paying those tariffs, they're fucking retarded. Sorry, it's the importing companies in the United States that pays those, and they pass that price along to the United States citizens.
So the nuance
That started
there
inflation.
is that importer could go back to China and say, hey, we had this agreement. It's going to cost me more. You have to lower your prices. And maybe they do. But also,
Didn't happen, though.
that's why other countries are getting way cheaper products from China versus us.
Our
getting
demand was too high. It didn't happen. If anything, it probably went up on prices. The demand was so fucking high.
But China specifically, we are not the only ones putting import or tariffs on them. I just read an article this morning that all of the BRICS countries like Brazil, India, they're all throwing tariffs on Chinese steel. So do you know any background on that?
I do
You
not
looked into it at
know.
all?
And I'm
So
not saying that all tariffs are, completely unfounded and incorrect. No. But Trump thinks that was Trump just thinking he's going to just like throw his weight around and bully China into something. He has no fucking clue.
And that's an important point, because to my understanding, the only good, at least from an economic standpoint, the only good tariffs do is political. It's, hey, I'm using this as a bludgeon, change your ways, and then we'll get back to being friends. It doesn't help anyone economically speaking.
Well, no, there are instances where, if like defense and security, where you might want tariffs to say, hey, no, we only want.
I would throw that under the political sphere of like, hey, like be a good actor, or like we're using it as a bludgeon. We're using it not as a, hey, what, and I guess my point is, and these are Trump's words in the like debate, we're going to create so much revenue through tariffs, right? And so his claim isn't I'm using this as a political tool. It's I'm using this in lieu of taxes, and that's why I get to cut all your taxes.
Yes, and that totally failed. Let's look up a few different sources of that. So Trump said he was going to cut taxes for the wealthy. He gave the middle class and lower class some pennies, but he cut taxes for all of his wealthy buddies, and he said, I'm going to pay for it through these stupid tariffs, right? And it absolutely did not work. It did not generate revenue. And what did he do? He ended up doubling or tripling our national debt because of it. And it's, objectively easy to
be fair,
measure.
Part of that's due to COVID. That was unavoidable by anyone that would have been in there.
Yeah.
A huge portion of it was.
Yes. But again, imagine if we had an actual leader in there that actually took steps to protecting our economy. Imagine if we had someone who did anything, we would have been in a better spot.
It is also very bad timing that he took away a task force specifically for global pandemics right before a global pandemic.
And that's exactly what Project
Where are the conspiracy theorists on that one? That's like that's low. That's a lob right there. That doesn't help. Low hanging fruit.
No, but yeah. So I mean, if you Google, did Trump's tariffs, make up the revenue for our taxes? Objectively, we can measure it. So horribly.
Every single economist that's worth his salt that's gone through both the Harris and the Trump tax plans, it's pretty unanimous that no one wants tariffs. It's going to be terrible for everyone. We're talking globally, not just us. It's bad for us, but it's bad globally. But then as far as tax revenue, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Simply throwing in tariffs is not going to make up near as much revenue.
No. But he said there were two things that he said we're going to make up for: the tariffs, and he said his economy was going to be booming so well that all the extra spending was going to make up for it in like sales tax and shit like that. And it didn't fucking work. It failed miserably. So our deficits and debts just fucking skyrocketed, and it just proved that he has no clue what he's doing. I mean, here we go. Let's see. Simply put, no. Tariffs are levied on imported goods, which totaled $3.1 trillion in 2023. The income tax on levied on income, which exceeds $20 trillion. The U.S. government raises about $2 trillion in individual and corporate income taxes at present. It's literally impossible for tariffs to fully replace income taxes.
All right. So the numbers are $3.1 trillion in 2023 on tariffs levied. The income tax as levied on incomes, which exceeds 20 trillion. So we're talking a huge amount. If they raised, and I'm just spitballing here, if they raised tariffs enough to get to the point where we were using that to cover that $20 trillion, the amount of every single cost of good, every vehicle, every restaurant, every home, everything is going to get hit by that tariff. Even it's not specifically on that product, but it takes that product to make other products that make everything else. Our wages have to increase. Inflation is a 100%. It will happen if we increase tariffs enough to even get close to that $20 trillion. Yeah. And that's just based off of the last couple months of me just really reading in-depth viewpoints from every economist. They did a cool poll that I watched, or not watched, but they had a bunch of different graphs where they got all the top economists. I think there was like 400 economists from different varying schools. So they disagree with each other a lot. That's the big joke in the economics world is economists never agree on anything. They showed this chart where it says strongly agree, strongly disagree, all the way to strongly approve. And they showed Trump's policies, Kamala's policies, which really. There were a bunch there that were Harris policies because she actually has some. Mm-hmm. And then there was just one that was Trump's policy, which was the tariffs. It was the only one that was unanimous, and it was unanimously strongly disagree. Mm-hmm. Never do this.
Yep. Even when he was proposing that, before it got even close to happening, everyone was like, there's no way it's going to happen. There's no way it's going to work. And then sure enough, it just fell flat. And people still just believe that shit works. Like, he just says it and people believe it.
I want to fact check myself because I've told people a couple of things. I heard that Trump's economic advisors, while he was president, strongly recommended not doing the tariffs that he ended up ultimately doing. They, from what I was told, they multiple times over and over again said, no, do not do this. This is not good for us, not good for the country, not good for anyone. But he thought that he knew better and just still pushed forward with it. I don't know if that's true or not, though.
I don't,
so
but
Trump,
I believe it.
What's that headline say? So Trump to move fast on tariffs as Wall Street firm, citing clients who met with.
Yeah, it wouldn't at all surprise me that he didn't. He was notorious for not listening to good advice. He surrounded himself by idiots, but even those that he couldn't kick out, like military, like he couldn't sit through national security briefings, right? They had to dumb it down. He wouldn't read.
Is this true? Verified?
All those people are on the record saying it. Like they literally
I want to see people on the record doing it because I hear a lot of things, and then because I've heard so much negative stuff about Kamala, and then when I look into it, I'm like, oh well, yeah, she probably could have handled that better, but half the time she's apologizing to people that she didn't she wasn't personally prosecuting people some of the times, mm-hmm. and so she found out that her I guess office or the people below her did something that was kind of shady. And I've heard stories for actually calling up people and apologizing. Yeah. And so fuck ups are fuck ups, but I don't know if Trump would ever do anything like that. Or maybe he would. I don't know the guy.
He don't care about no one but himself.
I'd like to actually get to know him because lots of people have met him. They do like him. Yeah, he comes off insane, but
the reality is everyone that likes him, he would despise them if he had to be in a room with them for more
you
than
don't know that.
Oh, we know that.
You're probably right, but we don't know that.
No, we know that, dude. We absolutely know that. He despises anyone below him. And we all know does
talk a lot of shit.
Oh, it's gross.
But lots of people just write it off as him being funny, a good sense of humor. Yeah. And if you listen to it in that light, he is. It's actually really funny when he says some crazy, stupid shit. If you take it at face value, you're like, how could anyone ever say that? But then I hear myself joking about stupid shit. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound too far off from dumb jokes I've made. Well, I'm just doing it. I'm not doing it in front of the country is the only thing.
The problem is his pattern is he floats shit and sees how far he can take it. And he takes it as far as he can. But then the second he realizes he's not going to be able to get away with it, he's like, guys, I was fucking joking.
And that does fall in line with his whole entire career has been doing stuff off the cuff, like Trump University and selling, a bunch of random products just to see if it sticks. But going back to so it says President Trump's top economic advisor last week, this is back in 2019, I believe. He said last week arranged an Oval Office briefing with outside experts who warned the president that continued escalation of the trade tensions would imperil the economy and hurt Mr. Trump's chances for re-election, according to people familiar with the meeting.
And it didn't hurt his chances for election because people who vote for him, they just listen only to what he says and they don't, look at the actual objective reality. But it did hurt the fucking economy, and we know that.
When Trump was first in office, I truly was just I couldn't care one way or the other. How I saw it, it was a difference of values. Some people liked Trump because their values were different than the people who liked the other side. And I saw both as crazy and extreme. You see the extreme on both sides. And I think the most of us are in the middle. The one thing that really started changing my mind with Trump were these tariffs, because that's something that at least I have a semblance of understanding around. And I have personally seen the real repercussions of it. And then when he gets on stage with Harris and he triples down on that, saying, not only am I going to be bringing back tariffs, well, not bringing back, they left the tariffs there. I don't know what. Yeah.
It's extremely difficult to roll those back. Once you're engaged in it, everyone's like, oh, well, Biden didn't roll them back. If there sucks,
is it that hard? Why couldn't they just unilaterally?
Apparently, it's challenging. Once they're in there, it has a ton of just shit rolling downhill effects if you just pull them. And so it's not as simple as just like, oh, just cut the cord on those and let's move on. It's
well, I
not.
guess because we were forced to up our production or do other trade deals with other people to allow for it. I could see how it could mess it up.
It's not simple.
But I don't think it would mess up any more than adding them. Like, why would it be? It would be just as there would be growing pains either way, right?
When Trump instilled those tariffs, right? He inherited a roaring economy from Obama, and everything was so good that it's like he had a lot of flexibility to make some mistakes, right? When Biden took office, oh my God, it was fucking just he inherited a horrible
again
economy
he inherited
from Trump
during COVID. That's not a fair statement.
It is fair because it's again, if we had actual leadership during COVID, things would have been different.
But the economy was trending in the right direction before COVID, though, under Trump, wasn't it?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He inherited an economy that was roaring, the greatest economy ever. He inherited it.
He kept it
and
going.
then it got rocky under him, but it was still going up. He had to really suck to fuck that economy up, right? But so he had the flexibility to do shit like play around with tariffs, right? But when the economy that Biden inherited, he did not have the flexibility to fuck up anything. If he took those away and the shit storm afterwards, like really had huge implications either on, on our just supply chains or on inflation.
But also politically how people viewed his relationship with China as well. Because they are, like you ask anyone, and China is one of our biggest, they are not good actors according to, I think, most people's viewpoints. Now, whether that's the case or not, I don't know enough about that.
Yeah, no, it's the case. I mean, they're our largest economic enemy,
is it true they use literal slave labor with Muslims over there?
It sure looks that way.
Uyghur, how do you pronounce that?
I'm not sure, but it sure as hell looks that way. But Biden doesn't have the luxury of having a roaring economy sandbox to just play around in like Trump did. And so he had, every little move he made had serious implications. So he couldn't just cut the cord on that shit. Now, he's had 4 years. What's he been doing about it? I think he's had larger fish to fry, but, it's not as simple as just cutting the cord.
So it says Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warned in a speech on Thursday, and when was this? 2020? Oh, so this is just now, the 17th. Warned on Thursday that the economic policies being proposed by former President Donald J. Trump would fuel inflation and harm businesses, raising alarm about the risks of blanket tariffs. So this is Treasury Secretary. So this is someone that works for Biden, so she could just be saying what, the left wants to hear, right? Mm-hmm. Calls for, and that's why if you get people who are specifically economists that you can't, not all economists are all just Democrats, right?
No.
In fact, many aren't because of the typical policies. But when 100% of them, 100% say this is an incredibly terrible idea, regardless of your political leanings, that I can't ignore. Yellen, whatever. Like she'll say whatever. They're all politicians, but I don't see there's any way around when 100% of hundreds of different economists who are the experts in our nation, when they are unanimous, and that's the only time they're unanimous, that's a big red flag.
And I think, at the end of the day, in any kind of decision that is being made, you want to upfront define happiness. And this Mr. Art of the Deal over here, Trump, he was going to cut new deals with China, and he was going to use those tariffs to bully him into it. What deals did we get from it? What did we get from it?
Well, he didn't have time. He put those in 2019.
Years.
A pandemic hit. He didn't have the next 4 years. Sure. He could have. I'm just giving him.
You can give him
the benefit of the doubt there.
Sure, but he didn't. He did it. Nothing came of it. We got nothing changed with China except for we pay more money for their products. That's it.
President Trump's chief economic advisor from 2017 to 18 and was director of the National Economic Council said Sunday that tariffs such as the plan proposed by the former president can lead to inflation if the approach isn't methodical. So he's saying there's a way to do it correctly if you do it methodically.
Question. Have you ever seen Trump do anything methodical? Does he know what that word means?
I don't know. I heard The Apprentice was really good. Everyone says you just got to watch The Apprentice. Like it'll change your mind on Trump. I'm like,
no shit.
So I've had multiple people. Like we know people. Ryan says like you should watch The Apprentice. It'll definitely change your opinion on Trump. He's a smart guy, and I'm like, you're watching a show that he produces. He is the head of that show and gets to leave in and
Yes.
cut out anything that makes it to our eyes.
He's fabricating what you're seeing. Although we were talking about that earlier. The Apprentice is one of only 2 successful businesses the guys have ever had.
Is that actually true?
It is true. It is true.
I don't know if that's true.
He has 2 business lines that have ever profited. If he would have taken the money that his daddy gave him and put it in S&P 500, he would be far wealthier than he is right now. He has lost more money than he was given or made. Okay.
Because they say his net worth right now is like $6 billion.
Yeah.
And half of that I think is his true social
I'm going to take
investment.
I'm going to take that back. I'm going to say it's 3 business lines because I can't ignore just him running for presidency, how much money he's gotten out of politics. So politics, he's made a shit. He's probably made more money in politics than anything else, selling fucking gold coins and hats and stupid shit. But
let's talk about that. I mean, that's a good segue. That's one thing that I'd like to do a kind of a comparison because both sides. Both of my friends, one very right, one very left, they're saying the same thing, but about the other candidate. We have one side that keeps on bringing up Hunter Biden, and I learned yesterday James Biden actually is one of the more shittier ones. Them accepting money that's potentially laundered from China. On the other side, and receiving money from Ukraine through Gazprom or whatever it is. The other side claims that Trump himself, along with Kunshner, who Trump brought on as an actual advisor, have made far more money from shady characters
Infinitely
back and forth.
more money.
So let's bring up, do a search for $40,000 check from Biden or to Biden. Well,
yeah.
So this is one that a friend, he's like, what do you think about this? How do you get away from this? So he said it's a .gov thing. It was an actual committee on a .gov website that was talking about a $40,000 check, and it was supposed to be laundered Chinese money.
Yeah. So your viewers should be aware that just because it's a .gov website does not mean it's a primary source. Okay. That was a Republican, oversight committee, and they can post whatever the hell they want on those. And they typically don't bring primary resources and citations into it. But
so how are these oversight committees created? Do you have to be in charge of Congress, or is it like anyone can just create their own committee at any time?
No, well, there's different examples. This one is, I'm pretty sure you can just create your own committee on that, right? But this one, let's see. No, the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, that's an actual committee, and they, you get voted in to be on that. And so in this instance, they've been running down the whole Biden is, corrupt shit, and they tried everything they could. Nothing stuck. They found no evidence. But this one in particular.
So go back to the .gov one, so we have more of an official side. So what we're seeing is a check. There's a $200,000 check and then another $40,000 check.
Yep.
It's paid to the president, Joseph R. Biden, and it's one check is from James Biden and one is from Sarah Biden.
So from his brother and then his brother's wife. And so Republicans are claiming that they're making shady deals with China using Joe Biden's name to get those deals, and then he gets kickbacks. And even here, they actually say, Biden's response was, oh, well, this was a loan repayment. And even, this Republican, states, well, it could be a loan repayment. We don't really know, but it looks shady. So he's guilty, right? But what they don't bring up is the actual facts behind all of this. And that is Biden wrote his brother and maybe, his wife as well. I don't know if they're both on the checks. He wrote them. He loaned them.
James and Sarah Biden.
James and Sarah Biden. So he loaned them $200,000 and then $40,000. And then they paid them back, both of those back within a couple months each with no interest. So he gave them $200,000 and he gave them $40,000 and they paid him back. And that's what those checks are for, right? With no interest. And so, but Republicans are saying, oh, it's money laundering and he's benefiting from these Chinese things. Well, he didn't benefit. He got no extra money. He loaned them some money and they gave it back. Not even interest. If there was interest, you might can say, hey, he profited off of some Chinese dealings, but he didn't turn a profit. Also,
well, what does that have to do with Chinese at all?
Well, exactly. So then they're saying this is money laundering to get him paid, right? Money laundering has a very specific definition. It has to include there was a crime committed in the process of that money being exchanged. They don't, they make no references to any crimes being committed. They just say, oh, people are doing business. Hunter Biden is making deals with the Chinese, with a Chinese company to get access to industry over the United States. That is a legitimate business transaction. There's nothing illegal about that. Could there be some nepotism involved because of his name? Sure. That's the American way, baby. Like, everyone does that, right?
Well, I don't know what is this, pointer.org? It's a fact-checking thing. I don't know how legitimate it is, but it says available bank records contain no evidence of wrongdoing by the president, nor do they provide evidence that Joe Biden knew where the $40,000 originated.
So he profited nothing. There was not even interest. Like, they didn't kick, like, if he gave him $50,000, if he gave him $240,000 and they sent back $300,000, okay, let's investigate it. And by the way, you want to know how you can tell I'm not in a cult? Watch this. If he did wrong, investigate him, and they can prove it, lock his ass up.
Yeah,
that's simple, right? Now say that about Trump. Now, right wingers, if they're concerned about a $40,000 check to Joe Biden from a loan repayment, gosh, wait until they learn about $2 billion that went to Jared Kushner from Saudi Arabia.
So what's the dealings around that?
Okay,
so
it's pretty fucked.
One thing that many people have brought up to me, first off, Biden, he's the elected official, Joe, yes. Right? His son and his, brother-in-law or brother James.
So James seems to be pretty fucking corrupt, actually.
And I know nothing about it. I've just learned that name yesterday from this check, but neither of them ever held office. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
Had no government, business, nothing.
So no one's actually claiming that Joe Biden is getting direct payments from someone. They're claiming they're getting it. Their family is benefiting from it. And those checks are maybe a tie to, if there was some shitty dealings, then he got some money. But according to what you're saying, he had bank evidence that he had already given them $240,000, and that was just a repayment of that $240,000.
The Republicans have those checks. They have all that information. They just conveniently don't tell their constituents.
They just throw in the one side.
Yeah, they're just trying to fucking paint a picture. And again, money laundering, it can only be money laundering if there was a crime committed. They accuse no one of a crime being committed. They're just saying, oh man, this is fucking shady, y'all. He's, So, but let's talk about Jared Kushner. Okay. So Jared Kushner in 2007 bought
And Jared Kushner is who to Trump?
Trump's daughter's husband, so his son-in-law. Okay. What's his daughter's name? Ivanka Trump, yes. So Jared Kushner,
so Ivanka's husband, and he was brought on as an actual advisor to the White House.
Yes. Okay. And so he in 2007 bought some real estate in New York City for $1.8 billion. Okay. It failed miserably. It valued less than half that amount, the original purchase, and it was bringing in less than 50% needed to cover his loan repayment. Okay. Then 2016 election happens. Kushner meets. Is it cool if I go into some details here?
Yeah, let's do it. Right. This is why we're here.
So, December 2016, Kushner meets with the manager of the Qatar Sovereign Fund at Trump Tower to try and buy a $500 million share of that real estate. The deal fails, right? Everyone realizes. He tries to hawk this property off on everyone. No one touches it. But he thought he was going to get Qatar involved. And
you say Qatar, that's the Qatar, as a lot of people say it, Katar.
Yep. And so it's seen that real estate is seen as poison because, no legitimate investor wants anything to do with it, especially now that he's associated with the White House.
Is Qatar one of our allies, or is that one of those I don't know our relations with Qatar?
That's a good question.
I'm going to start calling it Qatar now, even though that's weird to me.
I believe so. I think they're more of an ally than an enemy. Yeah. And so then in January 2017, Kushner is somehow allowed to join the Trump administration as a senior advisor to the president.
Just to follow back, President Biden designated Qatar as a major non-NATO ally in 2022.
That makes sense.
They're friends according to Biden.
So Kushner becomes a senior advisor to the president, has zero, background in any kind of government or any kind of leadership. He's a real estate sleazy businessman, right? And through most of 2017, the Secretary of State at the time, Tillerson, Chief of Staff John Kelly, and the NSA Chief McMaster all voiced concerns that Kushner is involved, and he was basically freelancing in foreign policy and did it all off the record.
So he went unilaterally by himself made some agreements with the Saudis
with Saudis and
to
other,
affect actual policy. Do we
to
know what
affect
those
actual
policies
policy.
are?
Yes.
Like
yeah,
how
I'll
did
get there. I'll get
how
there,
did
yes.
Kunshner get? Okay,
I'll get
let
there.
you
Yes.
go.
And so he started off with Qatar, and he was trying to use, the weight of American foreign policy to help Qatar out if they would invest in his failing real estate. Okay. And all of our, again, NSA, chief of staff, and Secretary of State are like, hey guys, we're raising the alarm here. This is fucked up. He's freelancing on our foreign policy off the books, and we don't even know what he's doing.
He's trying
representing
to use
the United States of America,
which is illegal to get American aid to help him in a
and he did this all without routing anything through official channels. And everyone should be aware that he was denied security clearance to be in that position. Our security agency said, no, this guy is likely compromised, but at best, he is too much of a security threat due to his shady business dealings. And Trump pushed it through. He's in charge, right? So he pushed it through.
Look that up, Rachel. I want to actually see that in writing, because if that's true, everyone needs to know that. So did Kunshner get denied security clearance, and did Trump push it through? So we'll keep going, Matt, while she's looking at it.
So then March 2017, Kunshner tries to sell that building off, this time to an Anbang insurance group that is basically tied to the Chinese government. So Qatar didn't work out. Now he's trying to work with the Chinese government. That falls through when the deal is exposed at how toxic this property is at this point. April 2017, Kushner's dad, who I think Trump pardoned him to get out of jail. He was in jail for a long time. That's a whole different. That's a whole different thing. The guy's a
that's the first time I've heard of that.
Yeah. He offers the building up to the sovereign fund of Qatar, and they try to make it happen again. The Qataris decline the offer. May 20th, 2017. Jared Kushner and Steve Bannon. Oh my God, Steve Bannon, a fucking entertainment piece of shit.
That's
right?
an entire episode right there.
Exactly, right? They meet with officials from Saudi Arabia, excluding our Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, not informing him of the meeting, completely off the records, but on behalf of the United States of America, right? When questioned by the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Tillerson testified that he was unaware of the meeting and he was pissed that it was taking place without him. You can't fucking do that. You cannot do that. It's our foreign policy with Saudi Arabia, of all people, right?
Who are not our allies. Well,
yes.
I mean, we have a tenuous... I don't know what our official policy with Saudi is right now.
It's kind of weird. That's a whole different.
They have a lot of money, so we want to be nice.
Yeah. So Kushner's pissed off that Qatar twice now backed out of this deal on this real estate investment.
Oh, so going back real quick, Rachel found it. President Trump ordered his chief of staff to grant his son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner a top secret security clearance last year, and this was 2019, overruling concerns flagged by intelligence officials and but that's just the deep state hating Trump, because Trump's clearing
a great
the
example.
swamp.
Those are the people who you want to stay in place no matter who's in president, because they keep the order, right? Those are the kind of people that Project 2025 wants to fire because, you're going to deny security clearance to my son-in-law? You're fired. Right, that's what they want out of it. That's the kind of people you have to keep that people in there to keep everything moving. Right.
And Trump pardons. Go back to that one. Trump pardons Jared Kushner's dad, who paid a prostitute to seduce his brother-in-law. What?
Greasy people we're talking here. So June 5th, 2017, Saudi Arabia leads a military blockade of Qatar. Kushner vocally supports the blockade. Rex Tillerson and James Mattis speaks out in opposition to the blockade. Trump tweets out support for the blockade in contradiction to U.S. policy. Qatar is home to the largest military base in the Persian Gulf. October 2017, Kushner makes an unannounced visit to Saudi Arabia on a commercial flight with intelligence officers caught off guard by his arrival, and no details on the purpose of the trip are announced.
That's no bueno.
Imagine Hunter Biden doing any of this. My God. We're just getting started, dude. November 2017, Kushner's company receives a $184 million loan from a bank that has the Qatar Sovereign Fund as its biggest backer. Then, a few months later, Qatar officials reportedly considered turning over evidence of Kushner conspiring with Saudi Arabia against Qatar to the Mueller investigation. But they back out of it out of fear of White House reprisals. February 2018, Kushner's security clearance is downgraded over intelligence reports that 4 different countries identified Kushner as a target of coercion due to his large debts and inexperience in foreign affairs. March 2018, Rex Tillerson is the Secretary of State. Rex Tillerson is fired by tweet.
Wait, what? He found out over tweet?
Trump fired him over Twitter. And that's who these fuckers want as our leader. Okay. Our goddamn Secretary of State. Secretary of fucking State, fired him over Twitter. May 2018, Kunshner's company begins talks with an asset management company backed by the sovereign fund of Qatar on the failing real estate over in Manhattan. And his security clearance is reinstated by Trump. Okay.
So it gets taken away and Trump pushes back a second time.
Yes. August 2018. The asset management company backed by the sovereign fund of Qatar agrees to lease that real estate for 99 years, giving Kunshner's company $1.1 billion in full upfront. $1.1 billion. In order to finance the deal, the asset management company gets a $300 million loan from the Qatari-backed bank that previously issued the loan to Kunshner's company. February 2019, Kunshner's $1.4 billion payment on his loan for that property is due. January 5th, 2021, the blockade against Qatar is finally ended, having never made any of the changes demanded as justification for the blockade. So what this guy did was he used the weight of our foreign policy, the United States of America, to threaten Qatar via the blockade from Saudi Arabia to pay off his $2 billion fucking loan on that goddamn real estate. $2 billion. And MAGA fucks are pissing themselves over a $40,000 loan repayment check. Imagine that. This is how far off these fuckers are, Jace. Imagine. So when people say both sides are just as fucking bad, no, they're not. That is like one of the best examples of how fucking far off these people are. They do not live in our reality. They are pissing themselves over a $40,000 check. Meanwhile, Trump's son-in-law, he's giving him security clearance despite everyone, not even our country. Every other countries are saying this guy is a security threat. Don't let him have top secret clearance. Trump pushes it in, and the guy gets his $2 billion bailout. $2 billion fucking dollars, dude. And yes, I did not bring up the fucking address of the real estate because, God damn it, the address, you can't make this shit up. The address of the real estate that he purchased is 666 Fifth Avenue, which is like, the second you say that, those funny, MAGA conspiracy theorists are going to go down some fucking wormhole and not take it at fucking face value.
What are the odds?
Imagine how much time they've spent on Hunter Biden, who at worst made a few $100,000 off of nepotism because of his dad's name. They tried everything. So pissed off at Hunter Biden. Yet Jared Kushner, $2 billion. Look up how much. Look at the Chinese. What are they? What's it called? When you invent something, you get not a copyright patent. The Chinese patents that got issued to Ivanka Trump because of Trump. MAGA folks don't know about that shit, and the things that they are just like clutching their pearls over Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. And if they knew half of the shit of how fucking gross Trump and his family are, but they don't care. Even when you show them the evidence.
He's the good guy.
If you show them the evidence, they don't care.
God supports him because he loves reading the Bible.
China Trademark Office granted approval for 16 trademarks to Ivanka Trump, marking that to 34 total in China. And you know, Trump's always saying like, "Oh, Biden's in bed with China."
That could all be legitimate. Like, is there proof that it was due to coercion? I mean, how do you separate that? That's just like saying, "Well, Hunter wouldn't have had that job had it not been for his dad." Mm-hmm. Which again, like, you know, if there's proof that Joe's saying, "Hey, give my son a job," that's one thing. If not, and Hunter's going to use his dad's name regardless. Yeah. I mean, we do have a phone call with Trump to Ukraine, very explicitly stating, "Hey, if you want this aid, you better do what I say." That's not supposed to happen.
No, and they were like totally fine with that. Like, you know, hey, they're our ally. If anyone knows,
that's just putting leverage on them. That's just, you know, that's what Trump's good at. He's good at making deals. Even though, you know, it's definitely not how a president's supposed to act based off the current law. But that's why they want to change the current laws so the president has more ability to do things legally. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, it's awful. Earlier we were talking about he's only made a profit off of 3 business lines, and that's The Apprentice.
That I want to fact check too, because like The Apprentice, he made money off of.
He made money off
He's
of.
definitely up on Truth Social. Yeah. It tanked from this top, but it's
everything that I'm seeing is like, I mean, they literally had to shut down the market on it because it was tanking so quickly.
But that was recently, and that was just 10%. But still, the last numbers I saw, he's got like $3 billion worth of stock in that, which is like half of his total net wealth.
Yeah.
Allegedly, because he won't release all of his financials.
So all of his charities were found to be fraud. The guy was ripping off kids and cancer patients. That just alone, the fact that Christians support this guy. And he's
ripping off kids and cancer patients?
Yes.
How so?
He's not allowed to run like charities in like New York, for example, because he had these fake ass fraud charities for like kids and cancer.
This was back
patients.
Before he was president?
No, I think it was before he was president, but I think while he was president is when like, all the court cases came through.
Because the big pushback from the right is, he was indicted on 43 counts of felony, but that was after he had a target, and so the deep state's just coming after him. So if there's things that happened before he was president, and he wasn't even thinking about running, I think people can maybe swallow that a little bit more.
Had to pay $2 million over a scam foundation.
Let's read about this. Remember Donald Trump's scam charity? This is Vanity Fair, though. No one cares what Vanity Fair says. They're bullshit. I'm just
virtually every organization Trump has run in recent years has been under investigation. Here's where those probes stand.
And this is
he was found guilty
Congress.gov.
on those.
Like we said, anyone can throw up anything on .gov. Yeah. But still, just the fact that that's a topic of conversation.
He's a fucking fraud. He ran charities for kids and cancer patients, and they were all fucking frauds.
$2 million restitution to charity after admitting to New York Attorney General Letitia James that he and his children had violated their fiduciary duties. Sorry, I got to swallow. Fiduciary duties as officers and directors of the now shuttered Donald J. Trump Foundation. Why can't I say Donald J. Trump? That's a hard word.
Just gross it without you.
As a result of that failure, charitable dollars consistently and over many years often benefited Trump rather than the causes the president has repeatedly claimed he supports. Wow.
So those are just his charities. Now, if you look at his businesses, Trump Mortgage, Truth Social, we can probably look in that right now, but it's just downward spiral. It looks like it was a pump and dump for him. He probably made some money off it, but we'll see.
One of the biggest investors put or sold 100% of their shares.
It's failing. The business is failing. I mean, he might be able to got some money.
His boy Elon, and I can say his boy Elon now. Yeah. Even though Elon lied to us, said he wasn't going to be supporting anyone, and then all of a sudden just did a little flipty-doody.
So let's go through them. Trump Mortgage.
Talk about that later, too.
Oh, I'd love to. Trump Airlines, Trump University, Trump Steaks. He had a travel site. Even Travelocity backed his travel site. It fucking failed. Trump Magazine, Trump Beverages, all failed. Every business that he tried
Trump vodka
failed. The worst is Trump Casinos. Jace, it is impossible to bankrupt a casino. It is impossible to bankrupt a casino. But
if you're skimming off the top.
Well, that's just it, though. He was trying to, the whole, from what I understand is it was just a Russian money laundering scheme, and it went south. And like, they put no effort into actually trying to like have the legitimate casino. They just thought they'd just put a casino up. They could just launder all their money through it. And like, they completely forgot to run the business part. That's how you bankrupt. That's the only way you can bankrupt a fucking casino. Other than that, there's no way to bankrupt a goddamn casino.
But we want a successful billionaire running our country.
No, you don't. Our country, the federal government should not be run like a business, period. So every single venture that he borrowed, every single one of those companies, he borrowed a shit ton of money and it failed and he didn't make the fucking payments. Every single time. At least 6 bankruptcies that we know of. How many are off the record? We don't know. So think about how many fucking Americans and how many banks, how many lenders he stiffed over the years. Because every one of those, he borrowed money and he fucking stiffed everyone involved. Every single time.
So having worked in commercial construction, how it works is you have a architect makes up some plans, some specs, all the different, hundreds, sometimes thousands of different people, they bid on different portions and they have to follow to a T those plans and specs, right? Mm-hmm. At times, AKA almost 100% of the time, there is gray area in the specifications and the contractor gets to provide, as long as it's in the contract, what is in those specifications. From what I've heard, and this is something that I did a deep dive on, I don't think we have the time or the patience to go through it now, but from my understanding is a large portion of Trump real estate is he will go from contractor to contractor to contractor because no one will want to continue to work with him because he will use that. What happens is if you don't agree with the owner, it goes to arbitration. You say, hey, I provided this, let's use, my expertise. I provided this style of door and the specification had a gray area and I went with this one because I thought this was best. I can get this product for cheaper, but it's part of your specifications. There's a conflict. He would take it to court almost every single time and make them settle in court because no one has the capability to
bully them.
Just sit there and pay lawyer fees. They'd rather just settle for at least get them out of there. And then you'd move on to the next contractor that think that they could do a better job. I don't have anything up on the screen, just to be fair to the listeners, about that. That's something I went back when I was in commercial construction. That was a deep dive I went on. There are a lot of reports. It's all circumstantial. It's something that I would probably like to have a sit down with someone who's a little bit more knowledgeable about that to confirm that that's actually true or not.
Yeah, no, you can
because there's a lot of upset contractors that are just shit, but it's on them.
At the end of the day, you have to look at it like this. Nearly everyone who has ever worked with Trump despises him because he's fucked them over, right? The list of everyone he's worked for that despise him versus the list of people who would still ever work with him, it's dramatic.
Well, then shouldn't we want him to be elected so we can work with Russia and China?
No, dude, no. And along that same vein, people think that he's a successful businessman. He knows how to lead a business. He doesn't know how to run a business. Right? He never had staff. He never ran businesses that actually had staff. Some of those failed businesses had a little bit of staff, but like his main business, the only one he's ever been really successful on outside like The Apprentice and politics is laundering Russian money through real estate. So his real estate
allegedly.
No, there's plenty of.
Well, did he ever get
there's plenty of documentation that all the Russians. Yeah, there's
why
plenty
is he
of
not
that.
in
We can
jail
go on that
then?
one next. Hasn't got caught. That's what I'm getting at, actually.
So it's still
his
allegedly.
staff,
It's still allegedly.
No, his staff. The only staff he ever keeps outside of his kids are attorneys. That's the only staff he has, brother.
And they turn on him at every turn, right?
Because he doesn't pay him. Giuliani kept him out of fucking jail, and he still hasn't paid Giuliani.
Is that true?
Yeah, dude. He doesn't pay even his attorneys, dude. So people think he's a successful businessman. He knows how to run these big like Trump real estate, Trump Tower, and all that shit. All he does on that is he just lends his name out to those things, those investments. That's it. He does not have a staff. He has his children and his attorneys, and that's it. And his fixer. I don't know who his current fixer is, but he had his Cohen. That's who he knows how to employ.
Cohen's the one that's in jail now, right?
He got out.
Oh, he got out of jail?
Yeah, he got out.
But he turned, right? He ponied up and talked.
He spilled the beans. And so he does not know how. He's not a successful businessman. He's a fucking criminal. He went from a wannabe mobster because he wanted to be this fucking Russian mobster. He had a bunch of Russian mobs friends, which, by the way, when you have the goddamn, former KGB, leadership telling the United States that goddamn Trump is a foreign, Russian asset and has been since the 80s.
Didn't we look into all the Russian collusion thing and Trump came up clean?
No.
That's what everyone says on the right.
That's what they say, but they don't. Not one of them has the spine or balls to actually just look at the Mueller report. If you were to just read the summaries,
they say it's
you will
bullshit.
see it. Yeah, but they just say that without actually looking at it. But there's overwhelming evidence. There's overwhelming evidence.
Then why didn't they actually take him to like?
Because
was Congress backing him up?
No, he shut down the investigation.
Well, why didn't they bring it back up when Biden was in?
He was trying to move on. I don't know. Should have. He should have, but the Mueller investigation provided ample evidence of wrongdoing, but it concluded.
Well, what do you say to the people who say it's all just a witch hunt?
I'll say that you don't care about the facts. All you're listening to is the guy who is saying he's fucking innocent. But if you look at the actual facts, there's no way you can conclude anything other than the guy used Russia's help to get into office. It was a coordinated campaign event. People who don't know who Paul Manafort is, that went over and learned the ways of Russian misinformation and came back as his campaign manager and did a damn good job at introducing alternative facts and pulling the
fake news.
Yeah. He mastered that, and people don't understand that, those accusations were legit. There's evidence for it. We know it. We actually saw him do half of that shit in real time. They coordinated with Russia on those WikiLeaks to come out at a certain time in the campaign against Hillary. They've admitted as such. We have the evidence. Mueller's investigation got shut down. They limited it. They wouldn't let him even look at finances. They hamstrung him the whole way. And that's why he didn't conclude that he was innocent. He concluded that this investigation, where it got shut off, we were not able to finish.
And that's where I think
did
a
not
lot
exonerate
of
him.
people were upset with Mueller because he did, by the book, he said, hey, I'm not the one who determines whether he should be prosecuted, I think is the term. And so he was leaving it up to people to read it. And people translated that as, well, Mueller said he shouldn't be prosecuted. And Mueller later came out and said, no, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Personally, yeah, I think he should, but that's not what I was. Yeah. I was here to make a report, not to comment on whether he should, but then like came back later and said, hey, no, I guess I should speak up now. I guess I should have officially at the time, even though it wasn't in my purview. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, basically, yeah. And it's what's crazy is like, I've come to decide, here's my thoughts on MAGA. I know a lot of people who are good, morally on the up and up, good people.
Yeah,
that
I know a ton
MAGA.
of them, a ton.
And therefore, the only way that MAGA can exist is if people are misinformed. You either have to be misinformed or a piece of shit to follow MAGA. Because
and I know a few pieces of shit, but not because of that. They're pieces of shit because of other things.
Yes, because there's no way that these good people, if they actually knew what was going on, that they would support the guy. But they just bury their head in the sand and they believe their cult leader on everything. Don't look at the evidence, just believe what he's saying. And that's
let's see what Rachel's got up here. The investigation concluded in March 2019. The report concluded that the Russian Internet Research Agency's social media campaign supported Trump's presidential candidacy while attacking Clinton's, and Russian intelligence hacked and released damaging material from the Clinton campaign and Democratic Party organizations. So we do have evidence that whether Trump was personally involved or not, for some reason, the Russian government did have interest in ensuring Trump got elected over Clinton. Now, as to the whys, it's not saying, but it identified numerous links between the Russian government and the Trump campaign. So it does have direct.
They have text messages, they have emails, they have phone records. They put them in exact rooms in Trump Tower with Russian government officials.
They determined that the Trump campaign expected it would benefit electorally from Russian hacking efforts. However, ultimately, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference. So I think that's the caveat there. There's no proof that they actively conspired with Russia to do that. There is evidence that Russia did it. There's evidence that they benefited from it, but not that the actual
the conclusion is oddly
conspired
worded.
Or coordinated.
Yes, I don't agree with the conclusion because...
But we don't have to agree with it, but that is the conclusion.
But literally the entire report is full of evidence.
It does say here,
they worked
the
with
investigation does not conclude that the president committed a crime. They would not indict a sitting president.
Obstruction of justice.
But it's as investigators would not indict a sitting president per an Office of Legal Counsel.
That's what it came
opinion.
down to.
So it's because he was president, he wasn't indicted.
That's exactly correct. Basically, what they're saying is if this was anyone but a president, he would have been indicted.
Okay, let's keep reading on. It does go in. It says, however, the investigation does not exonerate Trump, finding public and private actions by the president that were capable of exerting undue influence over law enforcement investigations. Okay. The report states that Congress can decide whether Trump obstructed justice. He controlled, what was it? Was it the Congress and the Senate while he was president? It was a trinity, as they say?
His first 2 years, yes.
Okay.
So, but
that
what
was
you have highlighted right there is all you
though.
need to know about. Attorney General William Barr is who he brought in. And he's the one that got Bush Sr. out of the whole Iran-Contra and all that shit. He is like an expert at working around the law.
Okay.
And he brought him in for that exact, and he hates him now. Barr can't stand Trump. Trump was too gross for Barr. That tells you everything you need to know, right? But Barr basically shut down the investigation. He's the one that set the confines. He said, you're not going to look at his books, you're not going to look at his financials. Completely boxed in the entire investigation. And
using protections because he's POTUS.
And he told him, here's what you're able to do. And he's the one that went to legal counsel and said, you cannot indict a sitting president for this, period. That's what your conclusion is, right?
Wait, go back to that last one, Rachel. What does that say? Barr, who said Trump shouldn't be near the Oval Office, says he will vote for him in 2024. Nice. I wish I was rich. That'd be sick.
Yeah.
All right.
And so we know for a fact that Trump has been working with Russians since the 80s. His son, his family, they've all come out and said that that's where they get their funding from. Trump stiffed so many lenders in the United States for decades that by early 2000s, Russia was the only entity that would lend him money. right? He could not find a lender in like the Western Hemisphere that would loan him money. After he ran through everyone in America, then he went over to Europe, ran through everyone over there, Western Europe, and then Russia was the only one that would back him for anything. And he has a very, very shady history of working with these Russian mobsters in these real estate deals. Every single
Allegedly.
time. Well, no. Actually, these people have gone through court on it, and they've gone to jail over it. They've been convicted of crimes of laundering money in real estate, and it's all like at his places and whatnot. And he got to say, "Oh, I was leasing that part of my tower. I that wasn't me." And so he gets away. He always works around it. He bullies his way through the system. He has the best attorneys who he stiffs. And so it's not allegedly. It's he has decades old ties to Russian mobsters and now the Russian government. And I mean, how do you feel about this? You know, prior to MAGA, think about how many different parts of America that he's turned conservatives against. You know, conservatives used to be like, you know, yay for, you know, the FBI and you know, police and everything, and we were, you know, dead before red, anti-commie, anti-Russia, right? And now all these guys are cucking for Russia. It's the weirdest thing ever, right? And so it's the fact that they've all completely flopped on Russia is just, to me, like really, really freaking weird. And imagine 10 years ago if anyone in between, you know, not as a sitting president, were having private discussions about foreign affairs with Vladimir Putin. That would blow their minds. They
Which Trump has said while over the last 4 years, he has been in contact
at
with
least 6 or
Putin.
7 times. He's had private phone calls. And even when he was in office, he would send out his translator. He would have, you know, he would be in the, I think it was in, I forget if it was where it was actually, but he would send out his own staff and translators and only sitting there with Putin and his translator.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the reason of sending out your own translator?
No clue. No clue, dude. But what business does he have talking with goddamn Vladimir Putin when he's not in office? Think about that. And why are people like okay with that? You know, like, I mean, God, we got to have a
Trump campaign spokesperson previously denied the report. During Tuesday's interview, Micklethwaite posted the question to Trump directly. Can you say yes or no whether you have talked to Vladimir Putin since you stopped being president? Trump responded, I don't comment on that, but I will tell you that if I did, it's a smart thing. If I'm friendly with people, if I can have a relationship with people, that's a good thing and not a bad thing in terms of the country. And that's so I would agree if I trusted myself, man, that's a bad picture of Trump.
Dude, that's so gross.
I mean,
it's so gross. How do you worship
if
this
he gets
guy?
elected, he's going to be the oldest president ever in history. But
it's
he dances like a fucking
It's so
pro,
creepy.
man.
Oh, with his little double jerk off hand
yeah.
move.
What was happening with that town
Can we
hall
take
where he
a
just
second?
danced for 40 minutes?
Can we take a second to say like how creepy it is that all these Republican guys fucking are worshiping 2 dudes running for president and vice president that wear a ton of makeup? That's fucking weird, dude.
I mean, Kamala
fucking
wears
weird.
just as much.
No, I think they wear more. They wear more. They definitely wear more. That's fucking weird, dude.
This is more.
Trump's speeches may show signs of dementia and cognitive decline. It's so funny how the script has flipped on that one.
Oh, it has.
And it's also like, let me ask you this. One of the things that constantly is brought up by the right, and when I say by the right, my close friends that I like, we talk to each other. They ask me like, Jace, how can you feel this way? And we like work it through. And most of my time, I'm like, honestly, I'm not the expert on this. This is why I feel this way, but please bring information to me. One of the things they keep bringing up is like, Democrats cannot be happy that they did a little switcheroo. They did the whole thing same thing where Bernie should have, gotten the nomination and they swapped it for Hillary. They should have had another election for the primary for the Democrats. What's your response to that as someone who is already planning on voting for Biden?
Logistically, you're not going to do it. There's no way to do it.
Do you think it was coordinated? They knew they did it. They knew at that time that was the right time to do it because they'd already focused on Biden so much, and all of a sudden it was just a great, fantastic, genius ploy by the Democrats, or was it hey, no, honestly, Biden is too far gone now. We can't legitimately continue on with him.
I wouldn't put it past him. It's totally a plausible move, but I don't think they're that sophisticated. And I think that we all kind of saw Biden's decline happen right in front of us. And it just like snowballed down to like, oh, it's not going to happen. And when you had, Obama and everyone encouraging him to stop, and he was like, no, it's not happening. For them to have pulled that off.
Wait, Obama was encouraging Biden to pull out?
Yeah. And the way that went down, for them to have pulled that off, that would have been pretty damn like slick. And I don't think they're that slick.
4D chess, baby.
Yeah, I don't think they're that good. I think that's what I think, Occam's razor is like, oh my God, Biden is just so goddamn old. And
but when you have the Illuminati and all the global elites helping you out, I mean, the lizard people are definitely going to be able to pull that off.
Now, there could have been they might have made up their decision, but then said, hey, let's wait for him to pick his VP before we do it. That could have, that was maybe a little bit better timeline, but I don't think that was their plan all along or for any long length of time. I think that Biden was the safe choice because they didn't have anyone else. Right. And so I think that's what they ran with, and is like, oh shit, guys, I don't think this is going to work, man. He's losing it. But again, no worse than fucking Trump. Like, again, show me like 3 sentences that Trump's ever strung together that was coherent that wasn't on a teleprompter. Chase, can we talk about
I would put Biden and Trump in the same category there. I will say this, since Kamala stepped up into the race, Biden seems to have maybe it's just he doesn't have as much pressure and stress, but he's been way sharper. Yeah. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
I had a friend bring that up as a conspiracy theory. Like, see, now he's having conversations that are like clear and coherent, and he was just faking it to get Kamala in there. I'm like, or maybe he's always been coherent, but when you're an 80-year-old like crypt keeper, it's hard to always be on point 100% of the time.
That's the difference. Biden is a smart man that is really old. Trump is a fucking crazy sociopath that is a pathological liar that just makes shit up. But he's incapable of stringing together a complete thought.
No, it's his weave. It's on purpose.
No, it's not.
He's weaving.
No. Here's a good one the other day.
We're not smart enough to understand his weave, and you just have to admit that.
There's a lot of dumb people that buy it. And I'll show people like this word salad and like, hey, tell me, like, does that make sense to you? And they'll look me in the eye and say, yeah. Like, listen to this. So he was asked, given the amount of mounting evidence of climate change, do you still believe it's a hoax? Trump's response: I get awards, environmental awards, for the way I build it for the water, the way I use the water, the sand, the mixing of the sand in the water. I mean, many different, but I've had many awards over the years for environmental, the way I built, because about building, that's what you do. It's very important to me. The real global warming that we have to worry about is nuclear. The water is coming up an 1/8 of an inch over 300 years. The ocean is going to rise, and nobody knows if it's true or not, but they're worried about the ocean rising an 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch in 300 years. What about that makes sense, Jace? Can we not fucking recognize that? The guy does not, he just spits, he diarrheas out of his mouth, and people are like, dude, that guy, that's who I want to fucking be our leader. It's diarrhea coming out of his mouth. It's incoherent. It makes zero sense, and people buy that shit.
And I used to think that, well, he has all these advisors, some of the top people. You must have a ton of information that the public doesn't have as the president of the United States. But when you hear time over time that he wouldn't listen to his advisors,
nope.
That worries me.
Oh, he's never listened to his advisors. They had to make it like little short poster boards in order for him to listen to anything on national security briefings and shit. And that's one of the main reasons I was more than comfortable voting for Biden again, despite him being old. They're like, dude, he's not going to be able to lead our country. It's about who you surround yourself with in your cabinet, right? Biden proved to us without a doubt that he was able to surround himself with competent people who were able to run this country. Trump objectively proved the exact opposite. He was going to drain the swamp. He hired a bunch of fucking people directly from the swamp. None of them, there are people, they had the whole Scammucci, what's that dude's last name? The Scammucci metric on how long people will last in his fucking cabinet. People would come and go like crazy. He could not staff anyone worth a fuck. The only people that stuck around were like rubber stampers, right?
They were all deep state.
No. He brought in people that were completely, had 0.0 government, any kind of experience. And they couldn't stick around because the guy is just fucking awful. He proved without a doubt that he is incapable of surrounding himself with people who can run this government. We know that for a fact. And people,
they were all plants.
They're all in jail now or
he's
suing.
weeded them all out.
Every last one of them. Yeah. The long list of Trump administration officials turned critics. Is Anthony Scaramucci lasted as his PA guy for 6 days or some shit. And so that was the scale that they used to see how many people on the Scaramucci scale, how long people would stay in. That's fucking hilarious.
For the last 3 years, I've fully supported the president, Scaramucci tweeted in September 2019. Recently, he has said things like that divide the country in a way that is unacceptable, so I didn't pass the 100% litmus test. Eventually, he turns on everyone, and soon it will be you, and then the entire country. Wow. Wow.
He put people in there who have no business being in our government. They weren't even successful business people. It was just
so you got diplomats, agency leadership. We can't read all these because it'll be the whole entire thing.
It's everyone who. But
you can do a quick Google search. But again, no one on the right is going to go to CNN and listen to what they have to say because they've proven time and time again that they're going to spin it whatever way they want. So how do we get information to people who are already skeptical of because you have to admit media in general is far left-leaning because the type of person that goes into journalism and stuff typically are very left-leaning as well. I had Allison on that. She'd worked in local news forever. And I mean, that's the type of person that is going to work in that type of it's a very demanding job to where you have to have journalistic integrity. And those are just the types of people that it's like actors. They're usually more liberal, right? So, and it's an incentive thing. There's a reason why it's all far left. I don't think there's a big conspiracy behind it. But then when you get things like Fox News, which is the other side of the coin, you obviously can't trust anything they're saying because they've said themselves that it's just entertainment and they can't be sued off of that because what are the words they said in court?
No one with a brain would actually believe what we're saying. Something like that.
And then you have
admitted to lying.
Around January 6th, which maybe we can talk on that a little bit. We have people, employees, big talking heads and there's one on the screen right now, Tucker Carlson. Didn't he have text back and forth saying that he knew that January 6th was a fucking ridiculous, but then they still on air said the opposite of what they were texting to each other?
Every one of those, his attorneys, everyone in the media, they all knew that he lost the fucking election and they all fucking lied to the American people and the people on the right still believed them. They fucking fabricated this entire fucking scheme to overthrow it. They lied to their viewers. It's entertainment. It's not journalism, right? They got caught lying. They had the text messages. They had the emails. And they admitted such in the court of fucking law. And they got punished and had to admit it on air. Fox had to come out and on air and say that they fucking lied about it.
Weren't they fined a ton of money?
Yes. And they fucking, they admitted to it. And people still fucking believe it. They're like, no. They're just playing the game, man. They had to do that or else, the deep state's going to come after them and shut them down. So they're just having to play the game and admit it. But, we all know that they didn't really believe that.
So let me see here. January 6th committee investigating the riot called McCarthy's decision to selectively release the security footage a dereliction of duty. The speaker decided it was more important to give in to a Fox host who spews lies and propaganda than to protect the Capitol, Thompson said in a statement. He called January 6th one of the darkest days in the history of democracy. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called the Monday night Fox News episode from Carlson one of the most shameful hours we have ever seen in television. I mean, this is AP News. I'd say this is one of the more
it's pretty good.
Respectful. Also, that's just Chuck Schumer's opinion, but when you are in court and you specifically say when the name of your company is Fox News, your defense is we are not news.
Correct.
That we need to change that, right? We need to have cancer warning labels on anything that legitimately spews away from going mostly to spin and opinion versus what's actually journalistic.
The challenge is there's no way to do it. People are addicted to that. It's the most toxic form of entertainment we have in our country. And people are addicted to it.
I would say CNN and Fox are both in the same, just 24/7 news cycles.
I wouldn't say,
general.
I mean, not one the same. I'd say one's worse, but they're both bad for you. They're both toxic entertainment. And you could have half of the screen be federally mandated to say, this is entertainment. Do not trust anything on this. And people would be like, oh, Deep State has to put that on there. We don't believe that shit, So it's like, how do you get through to a cult? They will believe anything that their dear leader says, and it doesn't matter the amount of evidence you put in front of them. January 6th, for example, I remember watching that go down live. talking with people, my friends and family that were MAGA conservatives, and they're like, I can't believe he's doing this. Why is he doing this? Everything was, fine. Why is he doing this? This is awful. And then it took 6 weeks maybe for them to get brainwashed into like, oh no, actually that's not what happened. Actually, couldn't find out that was all fucking Nancy Pelosi, and Antifa. Antifa's the one that did it, and Nancy Pelosi should have stopped it, but she chose not to.
Pence
they got brainwashed that quick. They watched it happen right in front of their fucking eyes, and they no longer believe their own eyes. And so you're asking like, how do we, talk to people about this? I don't know. How do you deal with people in a cult? That's what it is. MAGA is a cult.
Well, calling them a cult doesn't help.
It doesn't help,
right
but
now.
I mean, does it though? If they don't know they're in a cult, should they at least be? Someone needs to fucking tell them.
Hey, a lot
Someone
of
needs
people
to tell
told
them.
me I was in a cult, and as a former Mormon and maybe future Mormon, who knows? I don't think it's a cult. I think it's as much of a religion as let's say Catholics.
But MAGA's a cult. I mean, it's by definition, it's, don't believe your eyes, don't believe the evidence, only listen to what I say. And not everything I say, because I'm going to change my mind a lot, and I'm going to walk back a bunch of shit what I say. So only trust what I'm saying right now at this very moment to you, because the things I said before, some of that stuff, I was just joking, but right now, just listen to what I'm saying right now.
Well, a big part of what made MAGA cult-like is QAnon. And I don't know who's familiar with how that all came down, but there's a great HBO special called Into the Storm, I believe. You should check it out because it is enlightening. It doesn't specifically say one thing or another. It's one of those documentaries that's searching for the truth. And at the end, they give a very, hey, it's kind of obvious who started this whole thing and then who ran with it. And the gist of it is, it was all just a fucking hoax. It started with 4chan, then went to 8chan, which is now 8kun or 8 something. But it was a guy that was just messing around, and people believed that it was someone close to Trump or Trump himself. And we're talking about this had been planned. There's a lot of religious, spin in it as far as Trump is coming to save us. Yeah. And so if you believe in that, then that's definitely the beginning of a cult. But it was some anonymous, no one knew who he was. And then it turns out most evidence points to it was just some guy that was running a site that ran with a what used to be a joke and then turned into something that got lethal. Yeah. People literally use that as reasoning for going and shooting up places. So I would highly recommend people watch that to kind of get an understanding of where that came from and why we had this really cult-like mentality around Trump. And a lot of that pulled over into what we have today with the current MAGA movement. You don't hear about QAnon much, do you?
No, you don't. That whole thing died down of Save the Kids and all that shit. But it's so that's the challenge. You have this people on the right who they're more concerned about how they feel as opposed to objective reality.
And right? I hear that a lot from their own mouths. My friends on the right, it's I just feel this is right. And I'm like, I respect you. I love you. My brother's one of those. He's we don't see eye to eye on some stuff. And I say, man, I want you to come with me with actual data, with actual information, with actual proof. And they always, it's I just don't have time. And you have to do your own research. And I'm like, dude, I've done so much research and I want you to show me what I can't find.
That $40,000 check thing, you can, while taking a shit, you can just Google China $40,000 check to Biden. Google it. And before you're even wiping, you can get to the bottom of that, Chase. It's not that hard. That's the difference. We should always be shaping our attitudes and our minds, and anytime we're making a decision based on evidence and objective reality. That's the way it should go.
I could read an entire novel before I get done wiping.
It's not. Yes. It should not be about how we feel about something. And when MAGA is lying, whether it's the entertainment or the people, when they always frame things like, "Do you believe that Joe Biden is corrupt? Do you believe that Joe Biden is in bed with China?" And yes, I do believe. But why don't they ever talk about hey, we have this evidence. Let's discuss this. It's always, how do you feel about this? Or do you believe that? That's how you know they're full of shit. It's not based on objective reality. Conservatives, MAGA conservatives right now, the whole name of the game for them right now is to just completely make shit up and live their days in utter fear and hate over it. And anytime that you try to bring up facts, let's look at the evidence, man. Okay, show me. They cannot do it. Not once. They're completely unable to do it. Part of it's because, when they say they don't have time, what I imagine is going on is they go to look it up. and they're like, shit, I can't find it. Shit, I can't find it. And they just give up because there's no fucking evidence to back up their claims. So it's like, oh, it'll take forever because, I mean, I spent 10 minutes on it and I didn't find it, so it's going to take longer. That just takes too much time. When they can't just admit to themselves that maybe, just maybe, there's no fucking evidence for this stupid conspiracy theory about goddamn Jewish space lasers or Kamala controlling fucking hurricanes.
Or maybe
just
instead of rewatching Big Brother for the 4th time, you just, read. Part of the problem that we have is, people like me who I don't try to consider myself an influencer because I fucking hate that idea, because 99% of the time they're fucking charlatans that are just trying to grift. Right. And I've actively tried to push against that to the chagrin of my producer. Because, eventually, you gotta make money to do something. And that's the problem with that's been my struggle since I started this, is every time I've seen an opportunity to make money, I felt it wasn't allowing me to be an impartial person. Right. And it's like, I'm not going to push this product that I don't fucking know if it works.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, oh, it's great, I use this every day, when I don't fucking use it. And people do that all the time. And I'm not naming names, but there's a few out there that you hear all the time. There's a lot of money to be made with it. I really, really, really try to take myself out of the emotional, take myself out of my earlier biases. And I think I have a good place because I've been in a world and an upbringing that was I knew the right answer and I was very confident of it. And since I've broken through that and gone through the struggle of trying to see other people's perspectives and truly understanding their perspective, it's not an easy thing to do. But every single time that I talk to one person on the right or the left, it's always just what about this? What about this? What about this? And it's not like we're voting for anyone anymore. We're voting to make sure that evil doesn't get in office. Yep. And it's on both sides. And so I love having conversations like this. I wish we had someone that was like fully educated and eloquent on the matter that is on the right side. The only people I've ever met that are that way, they're usually pretty religious people. And they feel that even if maybe Trump's not the greatest guy, and no, he doesn't actually read the Bible, even though he says he does, like the important things for them is like the values that they believe in. Right. And I respect that. And I want there to be a place that you can have a middle ground. But right now it's not that. It's not about policy or not about our values. It's about, hey, I just heard a commercial that Kamala Harris is going to murder babies after birth. There's no fucking way I will ever vote for her. Right. And if you believe that, then Donald J. Trump, he's the only option. Like, it doesn't matter all that. Why would I even look into that if Kamala is going to be murdering babies at 9 months? Like, why would I ever even think of it? And then that's the end of the conversation.
Yeah. And the challenge is that their beliefs are just that. They're just beliefs that are unfounded, other than they've been told by their form of entertainment or by, whether it's podcasters or the news media or people at their churches who heard it from there, or water cooler talk. They just hear bad things and they feel that way because of the shit they've heard, but they've never actually just ran it to ground. And it doesn't take long to run half that shit to ground. And so that's kind of the difference between, this is overly generalizing, but a more educated left versus, the right and all their, conspiracy theories, is the only way that you can get wrapped up in that shit is you just don't, have any kind of background for why you feel that way. You just fucking feel that way. You're not going to look into it. And it's how do you even approach that? Like, how do you have a conversation with someone like, okay, the other day we were having a conversation with one of our friends and I forget what the topic was. Oh, it was about, Russian, influence and funding on all like the intellectual dark web. Right. Like, hey, I can show you that if you're interested in that, if you want to learn about it. They weren't interested in learning about that. Paint me fucking surprised, man. Right. And it's like, if that's the kind of difference right now, in my opinion, between the left and the right. Like, right, and certainly as a scientist and someone who conducts research for a living, if someone comes and tells me, hey, I have some information that you should be aware of that might, contradict your current beliefs, my response is, oh, no shit, let's take a look at this. Let's dive into this.
You get excited.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas right now, the MAGA cults, they'd say that, like, what are they going to do? They're going to, throw a bunch of, fallacies at, like, oh, who did that? Oh, can't trust them. I'm not even going to look at that. No. Oh, someone else already told me that that's bullshit. So I'm not even going to look at it.
Mhm.
They refuse to look at it. They refuse to look at the January 6th investigation results, the Mueller investigation results. They refuse to look at basic economic metrics that show without a doubt that Donald Trump fucking inherited the most booming economy the world has ever seen, and he left it fucking nosediving into recession.
Again,
Biden,
that was COVID.
Well, it was COVID under his leadership. Again, I mean,
Yeah, but
other people would have handled it differently.
If no country had a good economy during that, then we can't fault.
But we can all. But you and I right now can agree that there were a lot better people that could have gotten us in a lot better spot for that. Right. We found out that he couldn't bully his way through a pandemic. He did not. He took no actions. He took it seriously for 2 weeks, and that's it.
I mean, he leaned on Fauci's word. Like he did the Operation. With $10 billion that
he got out of the way a few times.
He set up all the PPP stuff.
Let's build a statue.
I don't agree with a lot of those things that he did.
He got out of the way.
He did actively try to work towards a vaccine.
Passively.
He did even say he got the vaccine and then got booed by his constituents.
Yeah.
That was awkward.
Yeah. So, and again, if you look at the metrics, Biden took over a nosediving recession, and that old man kept us afloat. Everyone knew we were heading into recession, and we didn't go into recession. All right. Anyone that can look at the metrics, the economic metrics, can tell you that, right? But they refuse to do that.
Before we move on, because I want to talk about the last 4 years, because everyone says, but before we move on to that, just one thing I wanted to go back on, because we were talking about influencers, incentive on making money. The FBI recently did just release that there is very clear evidence that there's multiple different influencers, YouTubers, et cetera, that received money from a shell Russian company that has been tied back to the Kremlin. So again, we do have clear evidence from a legitimate source if you believe the FBI is not overtaken by the evil deep state, right?
State, yeah.
So it's like that's one where you're never going to convince anyone if they don't believe in the rule of law in the U.S. anymore.
Well, some of those guys even admitted since then, like Tim Pool and them were like, oh, shit, turns out I was getting Russian money, but they're denying they knew about it, right? So we know it happened.
Even admitted
we know
to
it happened, right? And then the big one was it like just this week or last week that Prime Minister Trudeau over in Canada, under oath, was talking about, they were talking about that truck convoy and shit. And he said under oath that they had intel that Russian is influencing and funding folks like Jordan Peterson and Tucker Carlson. And you have people who just gobble that shit up as like, oh man, they're the contrarians and the government wants to shut them down and shit. No, it's their fucking...
Well, Trudeau's the son of Cuba's, what's this guy in Cuba? Fidel Castro's son. Yeah, so obviously he's going to say what the commies want.
That was Ted Cruz. No, Ted Cruz...
No, everyone's saying Trudeau looks just like Fidel Castro, and apparently he was a big playboy. Of course, the commies want us to believe that Jordan Peterson and Tucker Carlson are taking money from, but that makes no sense. Someone who went and interviewed Putin, that makes no sense that he would take money from Putin.
No, not at all. Or Jordan Peterson, who went over there and spent a bunch of time over there for therapy.
That one, see, all of a everyone sudden, says
magically
that
when he
that's
comes
ridiculous.
Back,
Jordan Peterson was dead at that time. He was in a literal coma, so he's not sitting there making deals with the government. He was in a legitimate medical emergency,
and it's just a coincidence that when he got back, everything changed on his outlook on a lot of things, including Russia. That's a coincidence.
Could be coincidence.
Definitely coincidence. But yeah.
But so going on to the economy under Biden, the constant thing that you will hear is, do you really want another 4 years of what we just had? The inflation is crazy, groceries are expensive, and it's all Biden's fault. What's your response to that?
So,
all right, lightning round. We've got to cut this up here in the next, 10 minutes. So I want to address the economy over the last 4 years. Yeah. Everyone has, on my friends on the right, they say, how could you want to live through that again? Me, who doesn't watch mainstream media, I don't sit there and watch like YouTubers or TikTokers on purpose. I try to just live my life, see how things are going. I always get shocked and surprised when they say that, because everything I've seen through economic forums, through actual data from our country compared to everyone else with inflation, it seems like we've actually been better off than everyone else post-pandemic. So I don't know if we have some charts that we can pull up here in a quick to do a few little lightning rounds to address some of those concerns, because I would agree with the right if truly we'd been running us into the ground. But I'd like to address maybe some of the nuances there.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, Biden, he had a huge challenge when he took over, right? And again, the economy was nosediving. Trump did nothing to help our economy during COVID. All right, he was terrified of.
And I say we even like take that off because there's no way that we could know whether Biden would do better. So it just Biden took over a really, really bad economy due to force majeure. There's no way that Trump could have foreseen, or let's assume he handled it as good as he could have.
Yeah.
But starting with where Biden did until now, how has the recovery been?
Okay, so there's been record stocks under him, record unemployment. American families are wealthier and in better financial shape than ever before. Okay,
how is that so metrics. When everyone, like the working class, say no, this is harder
because they're being told. Now, we did have high gas prices there for a bit, and inflation is kicking our butt. But again, both of those are global issues that Biden can do very little about. He did, and it's gotten better. Inflation has gone down dramatically. It's almost under control. We still have those high prices, but wages have now caught up. Okay, so families are wealthier. There is the inflation, yes, but families are wealthier. The income gap has gotten a little bit shorter as well. That's been good. All right. Household debt burdens are at historic lows. Wages are up. The income gap closed significantly under Biden and an increase under Trump. People got to realize that. The income gap increased significantly under Trump. Biden brought that gap back down.
And that's during the first 3 years, like pre-COVID.
Yep. We have a record equities market that is booming. We have record oil and gas production. We have record GDP
Which O&G
growth. People
listen to that?
Yep. Record production. He had like triple the amount of permits on federal lands than Trump ever did.
But it could have been even better during Trump. Maybe not. There's no way we'll ever know.
We've had record GDP growth under Biden. Let's see here. About half the amount of debt that Trump added. I don't know if that's exactly correct, but Trump's fucking debt was just out of goddamn line. Biden actually addressed our failing infrastructure with those infrastructure bills. Like, holy shit. Remember Trump we're going to have infrastructure week. He's going to solve that shit. Trump didn't do a goddamn thing. Biden actually fucking did it with some, bipartisan legislature.
And that's something my friends on the right actually recognize is the CHIPS Act and the Infrastructure Act actually is moving along the country. Something we've needed to do for a while.
Trump had
but that was even pre-Trump. We should have been doing
Trump
all that
had no meaningful legislation to come out of his presidency. Straight up. Nothing meaningful. Not like he said he was going to address infrastructure. He didn't do shit. He said he was going to address healthcare. Didn't fucking touch healthcare. Said he was going to address immigration. Trump didn't touch immigration. Okay. Biden brought back more manufacturing than Trump. We lost manufacturing jobs under Trump. Biden has brought back more.
How did we lose under Trump?
He said he did the exact opposite of what he said he was going to do. He actually incentivized manufacturers from going to go overseas. He incentivized it, dude. He gave them fucking tax breaks, dude.
And to go overseas?
Yes.
What?
We lost more manufacturing under fucking Trump. He incentivized manufacturers going overseas, dude. Look it up.
Do you think the tariffs that Trump put in place was why during Biden's, because there's always a lag from one presidency to the next. So there's stuff that Trump would have put in that caused some of the manufacturing to come back?
No. Biden
How do we know that?
Well, because Biden was very, what's the word? Not particular, intentional about what he did with that infrastructure bill, with that CHIPS Act. He put a lot of mechanisms in place. I said his presidency, right? Democrats in Congress and in his office.
So we're looking at a chart right now, and from Trump taking over from Obama. Obama had been steadily increasing manufacturing jobs in the U.S. Trump about halfway through his presidency, so well before COVID in 2020, because there was a huge drop off in 2020 as expected.
He starts losing,
but it was drastically going down, almost at a 1-to-1 deficit.
That's after,
so that was well before COVID happened, right?
Yes. Okay. And then look at it under Biden.
Was that right around the time he put in the tariffs? Or was tariffs were closer to 2019.
It has to do with his tax policy, not his tariffs. It was the taxes. He incentivized it. He wanted his rich buddies to make a shit ton more money. Biden actually cut deals with Mexico on immigration. Trump said he would. He didn't. Trump. Here's the real fucked up part. Biden oversaw that bipartisan immigration bill that was, for the first time in like 2 decades, was actually going to have a little bit of fucking teeth to it, a little bit of meaningful legislation to actually address immigration. And Trump fucking got word of it and shut it down, told the conservatives, Republicans in Congress to not vote for it, even though they were part of writing it, because it would help Biden get reelected. Trump shut that shit down, and he's not even in the fucking government, dude. That's fucked up. That is not, he's looking out for himself, not the American people. All right, that is clear. Plain as day. All right. We have under Biden, we now have a record number of Americans with health insurance. Under Trump, it went down. He didn't touch fucking health insurance. Biden began those drug price negotiations with manufacturers and he reduced the insulin prices. Now Trump didn't do shit about it. Now he's claiming he's the one that got it down. He got Trump's inflation down. Violent crime has reduced. This is another narrative that the right is like trying to claim that, under Democrats, it's a violent fucking, no. Violence was up under Trump and it's gone down under Biden. All right. And actually it's been trending down. The right seems to be saying that, everything's getting violence and we're just letting people out of jail. And no, violence has gone down tremendously, but even more so under Biden. Biden has doubled our green and renewable infrastructure. He didn't completely fuck over all of our trade agreements or the supply chain like Trump did. I mean, beyond just tariffs, all the trade agreements have all just gotten fucked, like NAFTA and everything. He didn't give Iran back their nuclear capabilities, which Trump fucking did. Another Russian ally over there. He didn't host terrorists in the U.S. and Biden did get us out of Afghanistan. People still like to say, it was so fucking sloppy and dirty. Trump is the one that set that in motion, right? People had time to get out of there and they didn't. There was zero scenario where that was going to be anything but messy. He got us out of Afghanistan.
So Trump was the one that started that because, I mean, the president is the chief, right?
Yep.
They have the ultimate say, but they're not the ones actually coming up with the plans.
Trump hosted goddamn those Taliban terrorists at fucking Camp David in the United States of America, cut a deal with them to say, hey, we'll fucking give it to you if you're fucking cool, man. And said, all right, we're going to get out at this date. And by the time of that date was approaching, it's like, no. Biden pushed it back a little bit further, but he's like, well, fuck, we're going to do it. Let's just get out of here. And he fucking ripped the Band-Aid off. And he got us out of Afghanistan. Trump didn't do it. Trump could have done it. He didn't do it. All right. Yeah, it was fucking messy. But is there any scenario where have we ever left a war theater where it wasn't messy? And
So
we didn't leave
13 Americans that died during the
behind?
pullout. How many lives annually did we lose just being over there? I know the dollar amount was in the hundreds of millions per year.
It sucks, but there's no way that we're going to get out of there without it being dirty. And he got us out. He ripped the fucking Band-Aid off. And
if
then
you're
lastly,
a family member, one of those 13 people, there's no cost to it.
Yeah.
And
lastly, our president this past 4 years has not been committing treason and committing federal crimes. To me, that's a big fucking plus. That's a big fucking plus. All right. He's not a goddamn criminal. He's not a rapist. He's not just a piece of shit. Okay. So yes, I would take 4 more years under Biden, even if he's just a figurehead and his cabinet is doing the job because they've proven that they can do the fucking job. Unlike Trump, he's proven he's incapable of surrounding himself with anyone with any level of competency.
But with Biden not being the option anymore, with Kamala, do you feel like Kamala is an upgrade from Biden?
Probably, just by goddamn, she's younger. I mean, Biden had no fresh ideas. We need fresh ideas. She might bring some fresh ideas. I would hope so. I'm not a huge fan of her. Although I will say that a lot of the shit that, I used to not like about her, I had a bunch of preconceived notions when I found out she was running. And I'm like,
you hear on Rogan all these things about her, and I was not a fan at all.
Horrible DA, and she locked up a bunch of people for no good reason. I went and looked at all that shit up, and come to find out it was just, those were the bullshit lies Tulsi Gabbard was fucking pushing. And I went and looked them up, and they were all fucking just lies.
Well, they weren't lies, but I think
it was
the full story gave me a different perspective. I already brought up one of them that was wrongfully convicted, kept in jail longer. She actually did call and apologize to the guy. The other one was keeping all of these nonviolent drug offenders in jail. Well, the caveat there is she gave them an opportunity to assist with the fire protection. Some people chose to do it. They got their sentences lowered. The people who chose not to do it were upset that they didn't get the same thing, even though they didn't, do the work. And there's a lot of nuance there, whether we should be making prisoners work to get out of prison sooner. Maybe they should have all been commuted no matter what, because it's nonviolent drugs. And a lot of those, never would have gone to jail under our current legal system. So I get that, she had an opportunity. She probably dropped the ball on some of those, but they weren't as dire and drastic. And it wasn't like her directly on some of them. It was her leadership, which at the end of the day, you're the quarterback, you take responsibility. But when she became the candidate, I actually looked into all those claims, and I was surprised at how not evil it was.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And it's just, again, that's just the right wing, That's how strong their manufactured consent is, or in this case, dissent. They're just really good at making shit up and sticking with it, and they just pound it, repeat it until it's the fucking truth. Repeat it until it's the fucking truth, and people buy it because they're never going to fucking look it up.
Well, early voting in Texas starts November 21st. Georgia already started. I believe the opening day was double the record of previous years of people who voted early. If you're not registered, do it. Remember, we're in Texas, so you need an ID. I don't think that this podcast is going to sway people who have already made up their mind. I honestly still need to continue to look into stuff. I don't think that what we talked about matters to a lot of people. I think their base underlying values are going to drive based off of very, like, one policy voting is very common amongst my friends, at least, and it's probably not going to change them. But I think at least we need to know. So whoever does get elected, first off, hopefully it's a peaceful transfer. Can we just please, for the love of God, have a peaceful transfer?
They're already gearing up
then
for it,
when whoever gets elected, you have to look at all of the different options. We'll never know how Trump would have worked these last 4 years. We'll never know that. And you can make your own assumptions. You can throw a lot of information out there as to what was and was not done by the current administration. But at the end of the day, we need to make that decision, live in this democracy, maintain this democracy, and then live with that leader. One of the biggest mistakes I think our country has made is change the policy that second place is now vice president. Just imagine what our country would be if you run, you are agreeing to be the vice president of your running mate. And there's no way that our current political system would be in the state it is of division, because you have to work together. That would be something that I don't think we'll ever get back to. But if we did, God, I really just think that would completely combine our ability to do bipartisan work personally.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Sorry we had to rush this last end.
All good.
Everyone go vote. Love you all.
There.
Bye.
Later.
See ya.
I am Woodstock.